Well, happy Valentine's Day, everyone. What an awesome experience it is to have you lovies in the room and to celebrate Heart Health Month. I'm Chastity Marie. I'm excited to be here. This started as just having a lunch with Oren, and then my sponsor, Artie, he said, do you think you could get a group together? And I said, in 3 days on Valentine's Day? I said, you know what? These people in Texas are in love. I don't know if we can do that, but look at you guys. Y'all showed up. So round of applause for all of you. So like I said, I'm Chastity Marie. I've been in this space for the last 15 years. Absolutely love the industry. I love the build. I love the people. I have people in this room, and I'd love for them to stand up real quick, that are my foundational group. They've been with me for the last 13 years, and they've made today possible. So if y'all would stand up. Awesome. Okay, so without further ado, we're going to bring up Dr. Colin and our president of North America, and I hope I get it all right because we are brand new. We've only been partnered with Zinzino for about a month and a half, so we're still learning all the things. I know a couple of you asked us questions like if we were the experts, like what's in the collagen, what's in the shake, and we said, here's the box, read it. So it's not because we were trying to avoid it, it's we're learning with you guys. So this is an opportunity for you to learn, for you to ask the questions, and to have this intimate time one-on-one. I was excited when I knew that we were going to, have Art in the room and Oren in the room, and then Artie Napolitano went on and on about Dr. Colin. He's like, do you know who he is? And I'm like, I don't, but I'm going to find out. So I looked him up all over the web, I've watched his videos. If he sees like this stalker chick, it's me, because I've been watching all his stuff. I did reels, and it looks like he's my Valentine if you're being, he's all over my social media. But we are very excited. So this is your opportunity. Get some photos, for social media. Make sure you post their credentials and who they are, so that people can just really know y'all are getting in the right circles in the right rooms. We don't know everything there is to know about heart health and all of the things that we're learning, but when we're around the right people, those other people can ask the right questions, and then we know how the power of connection works. So without further ado, let's give a round of applause for our guest of the night.
Hello. So thank you for that amazing intro. It's so good to have pros on the team so you can see that you've done meetings, that you've built businesses, and thanks for putting this together.
Thank you.
It's not easy, as you said, to say, hey, let's have a meeting. Let's try to squeeze it in. Let's try to convince Orion to say yes after a 3-day conference of nonstop meetings. And that's what we just did. We literally, I think we started on Thursday, and then we had breakout sessions, and that was 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., 10 a.m. to 11 a.m., 11 to noon, noon to 1 to 2 was another breakout session, 3 to 5 was another breakout session, then lunch or dinner, then there was one more breakout session that night, and then into the evening. And he just flew all the way from Norway. So he's, it's like jet lag and all these questions are coming at him, and his energy just great throughout. Then the next morning was a 8 a.m. meeting, I think. Yeah, 8 a.m. meeting, another breakout session, and then we had a conference going on. And then he had more meetings that night, and then today he really had to bring it from the platform. He's in a meeting right now. And I share that just to share the hunger level that he has. Some people are just built differently. Some people are built as like, we're getting there, and we want you to be part of this journey. We'd love to get you to be part of the journey, but we're getting there anyway. And so he's going to come and join us as well. I just want to set that up. And it is special to be able to spend a little bit of time with him. We don't get him in the US a lot. Zinzino's open in 50 countries officially. When I say officially, that's not, we're sneaking products across the border, and he'll be talking about that maybe a little bit. That's, we have a warehouse either in that country or a neighboring country. We have the local language support. We have the local currency. These are hard things to do. This is not something you do in 1 hour or 1 week or 1 year. You have to develop the muscle to do that. And he helped, put that there. So, he's here now, and he may be in Taiwan the next week, and then the next week after that, he may be in Germany, and then same with Dr. Colin. He came all the way from England. Last week he was in Athens, Greece. How many of you would love to be in Athens, Greece, right? So he gets to travel and then go run around the Parthenon, or I don't know if you did that, but maybe you did. So it's a moment where, yes, it's Saturday night, and yes, it's Valentine's night, and we're so thrilled that you made it here. And then hopefully we can answer a few questions, maybe a little bit of insights. So Zinzino, we're so hungry. And the hunger comes from impact. So the most important part of our company is the people, clearly, on the corporate side, on the field side. And this weekend we spent a lot of time talking about product, a lot. And some people said, can't we just talk about pay plan? And yeah, pay plan matters 1,000%. But if you don't have a product that people want, and if you don't have a product that you would take without a pay plan, then it's going to be a struggle to go make money in the pay plan. And a lot of people get that backwards. Show me the pay plan and then tell me what product it is and I'll just plug it in. Okay. That hasn't really worked out over the years. So we spend a ton of time on the products. And then over time people go, yeah, this is different, right? So most of you know the simple example, and I'll just share it because I've promised myself that no matter what, I share this. Because this is the thing that if you learn how to do this, you can go and impact lives. So what I share is, here's what I learned. So if you're talking to a friend, whoever it may be, you're steering the conversation towards health, and I'm turning to Colin, I'll say, hey, here's what I learned. Imagine this is an omega-6. I had no idea what that was, Colin. And what I learned is that it's essential. Your body has to have it. Your body doesn't really make it, so you have to get it from your food or a supplement. And people go, yeah, that makes sense. Then I say, imagine this is an omega-3, and omega-3 is essential. Your body has to have it. Your body doesn't make it. You have to get it from a food or what? A supplement, right? So then people go, okay, what's the difference between the two? And the omega-6 creates an inflammatory response when your body needs to create an inflammatory response. So if you cut your finger and you're bleeding and you don't have omega-6s, you're in trouble. So omega-6s aren't the bad guy. We need them. And omega-3s create an anti-inflammatory response. And that's the most complicated part, the words inflammatory response and anti-inflammatory response. But that's how we need to phrase it, okay? And then I learned there's a number. Any of you want to guess what the number is I'm going to talk about? 3, right? You shouldn't have any more than 3 of these 6s for every one of these 3s. And if you have 3 or lower, you're good to go, buddy, as we say here in Texas. If you're 3 to 10, better start paying attention. If you're 10 or higher, danger zone. So, would you like to know your number? Yes. Now, can you learn how to say that? Yeah, maybe at first you have to practice a little bit, but I bet after doing it 4 or 5 times, you're going to be pretty good at that. And then you can share what happened to you. I found out my number, it was 20. Oh my gosh, fill in the blank, right? And then let them know that 99 out of 100 people fail the number. They have a bad number. So then would you like to do something about it? That's the second question. Is that pretty easy? Yeah, we're not hard selling them or being insistent. We're just, hey, would you like to know your number? And then would you like to do something about it? And the option of wanting to do something about it is eat better, more omega-3s, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 cans of sardines a day, whatever that might look like. Colin will fill that in. Very difficult to do. Or you take this product called the Balance Oil. And the Balance Oil is a simple oil. You put it in a shot glass, put some water in there, pour it on top, take the shot, 1 second solution, and 120 days later you can test again for your number and you're going to be good to go. Well, that's pretty easy. Yeah, so you're buying a lot of omega-6s every day, canned, processed, boxed foods. If you're going to the grocery store and you see people checking out at the conveyor belt, and you're waiting and you're just watching what they're buying. So the next time you go to the H-E-B or, whatever grocery store you're at, just think about what I just shared. What do people have in their shopping carts? And so the idea is take $45 out of the, triple deep fried Oreo cookies and the Doritos, and just $45 a month, just move that 45 and buy a bottle of Balance Oil. And you're covered. It's like, wow, that is such a simple way to do this. And how many of you have learned to take shots since high school or maybe college? Okay, whoa, you straight hand right up, right? So most of us know how to take shots already, so that's pretty easy. And that's what we offer. And then the third part is, we believe that unlike Netflix, like how many of you watch Netflix? Maybe once in a while. It's okay to admit it, right? I'm a big Netflix fan. I watch shows with my wife and I share it with my friends. But they have 200, now close to 300 million people who pay them either directly or because they're advertising to them every single month. But we've helped that company grow, haven't we? He's probably recommended some of their shows. So they have a subscription model for entertainment. We have a subscription model for preventative health. The difference is, even though they're publicly traded and we're publicly traded, is that they don't reward us. I've probably brought them 5,000 subscriptions since they started. Reed, Hastings, the CEO, he's never given me a thank you note. He's never said, here's an Amazon gift card for doing this. He's never given me a free month of Netflix. That greedy, beep, 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 beep. Fill in the blanks, right? And then there's another company called Enzino that says, if you get excited about what we do, if you get excited about just simply sharing the hands, if you can do that, and then people say, I'd like to take that, and some of them become customers long term, and we have some customers that have been with us 10 plus years ordering every month, then the company will pay you every month for the work that you did on the customers you create, or people that you also find that are excited in the customers they create. So which business model looks more insane? It's really hard to defend Netflix. Would you agree? So if people come to you and go, oh, it's not one of those things where as you help build customers, they pay you, is it? Darn right it is. Why would I not do that? And that's what we do. And we've built over $300 million in sales. And then here in the United States, our goal is to go and test as many people as we can. So in Europe, they've done about 1.5 million tests over the last 10 years. In the United States and Canada, we've done 70,000. Right? So we have a lot of work to do, but that response is an entrepreneur response. Oh my goodness. You have something that 99% of people in the US need, because 99 out of 100 of your friends fail this test. So think about when you see your mom, your brother, your best friend, are they one of the 99? And if they are, and you're keeping it a secret from them, that's up to you how you feel about that, but I wouldn't feel good about that, right? So we have this opportunity to go out there and go test 1 million people in the US and move the dial on public health. That's what we think we can do and what we believe we can do. And so you're part of Enzino, I think all of you. And so you just have to ask yourself, how many of those tests will happen in my organization? And you can get as much or as little as you want. We're not here to tell you what to do. But I know there's a couple of you, at least 2, there may be more, that your eyes and your vision of what's possible is so big that you're pulling me almost all the time. Hey, let's go here, let's go here. And we're so excited about that. So we have Colin here, who is our Chief Product Officer, CPO. You could put a 3 in there and it'd be C3PO.
And I love Star Wars.
Yeah.
Have I never thought
Star Wars fan. Yeah. All the way from England, via Athens, after 3 days of conference, and we have a chance to just pick his brain. So I shared kind of a horizontal view of one of our products and one of our tests. And here you have a chance to go a little bit deeper on a vertical view on the products. So he's going to share a little bit and then just start thinking about what are those questions that you've had on the top of your mind that you want answered now that you can then teach others and teach your team. So Colin, thank you for being here. You're amazing. You're a road warrior. And I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, and it's great to see you all. I can see some familiar faces and then some brand new faces, which is cool. And I've been looking at brand new faces for the past 3 days, which has been phenomenal. And I was just thinking when you were saying, so and you might know this, anyone who's got a mathematics background, so 99% of the people will fail. That's not just our data. If you look at the general epidemiological data around omega-3 status. But actually, the probability of you finding someone who doesn't is way less than that. So most of you, you could actually be doing this for the next 10 years and not find one person who is actually less than 3 to 1. Because probability is different to growth statistics. Growth statistics is an entire total, but you don't know where that's weighted. And so, I'll go easy. When you look at the average in the US, which is higher than Europe, actually for you very, very, very rare that anyone amongst you in this room will find someone who is off the bat less than 3 to 1. Very unlikely. I just wanted to share that because it was in my head as I was thinking, going, actually the probability of would be 0 to the power of 0, 0, 0. Yeah, so it's unlikely. Anyway.
You could take that to Vegas and make
good
odds.
So it is always a privilege to talk about the products. I'm very passionate about them. When I left academia full-time to join Enzino, people said, oh, you only say this stuff because Enzino pay you. And I said, no, I only joined Enzino because I believe in the product. I already had a great career. I didn't need to move across anywhere else. I didn't need to do anything I didn't want to do. And I moved across because it was a heart-led decision, which was to help more people regain their health and live better lives. So everything I say is based 100% on what I believe. And when I was in a university and I taught nutrition, which I still do, everyone sits there with the pad open and goes, great, this is first-hand insight. And then the minute someone's skeptical about what we do, they go, yeah, but you're just saying that. So I want to guarantee you, I never just say anything. My credibility has taken 35 years in the making, and I could lose it in a heartbeat if I say something that's false or inaccurate. So whatever you ask, I will do my best to answer it fully, and if I don't know, I'm happy to say I don't know that, but I will get back to you. Okay? I can always find out. There's 2 different types of knowledge, the one we retain and the one we can access. I try to keep as much up here as I possibly can, but sometimes I have to access it. Okay? So in that spirit, and it is lovely to see you all, would anyone like to start us off and ask a question? Here we go. Fantastic.
Yeah, in my past, I was a nurse. So my first thought was, okay, I saw one of the first things I noticed about this was that it affects the cells and makes the cells where they can absorb nutrients. Also supplements. So what about medications? What can we tell our customers? I almost went to patient. What can we tell our customers? Because I'm thinking, well, they may have to, if they previously, maybe they weren't absorbing this medication because their cells weren't able to absorb it before. What if they're absorbing more? Wouldn't they have to adjust their medication?
So it's a yes and a no, and I'll explain that. Because when I'm going to take a simple type of medication, let's just say, do you have paracetamol over here, like aspirin kind of paracetamol, standard painkiller? So what you have is across the neuron, you have different shaped receptors. And when that neuron is sending a pain signal, for whatever the cause of pain is, the way a standard pain medication works, and actually I'll come back to paracetamol, is that if you imagine you have this at a molecular level, it's got different sides and shapes to it, and it rolls into the receptor. And so it closes the receptor off and says, quieten down, everything's okay. And that's why sometimes you get complete pain relief and other times you'll get partial, okay? Because it's about the amount of accurate fit and also the intensity of the pain. You can only, and that's why you have to start using opioids and increasing the pain medication. Now, interestingly, we don't actually know the mechanism of how paracetamol works. And there's a reason why I'm saying that. So when you look at cellular membrane fluidity and getting nutrients in and waste product out, it's not a receptor issue. It's literally a transfer. It's an osmosis issue. So it's that nutrient that's been broken down, absorbed by the gut, that's now being portioned out to function at a cell. And it's actually across a membrane. So it has to be semi-permeable, dynamic, so it goes through nice and fluid and gets to where it's meant to be. So whilst there is receptor activity, enzymatic, it's not the same as a pain, which is a neuropathy, which is where you're literally just trying to tell the brain that doesn't actually hurt. But then it depends, and the reason why it's a yes and a no, because there are different types of medication. So it depends on the target of the medication. And so in some instances, it will heighten the response, and that's why we always say to someone, if you're on long-term high-dose medication, speak to your doctor, because it could be they can reduce the dose. Because if you think about it, you've now increased the permeability, more's getting in, I can take less. It's now a more effective thing. So it's always good if you're on long-term high-dose medication, if you're being treated for any kind of serious chronic disease, speak to your doctor. And remember, and I say this with all affection, I've got lots of friends and colleagues who are medical doctors, you're not asking for their permission, you're asking for their guidance. So you're not saying, can I do this, mum and dad? You're saying, I'm going to do this. What implications does that have, and do you need to adjust anything? And if they start to say, well, I don't think you should, say, great, I didn't ask you that question. Can we get back to the question I asked you? I'm going to do this. What do you need to modify in order to make that safe? That's the question to be had. They are not your mum and dad. They don't tell you when to go to bed, come home, put the ball away. So people need to have more meaningful conversations with the doctor. When I was working clinically and I was helping people with all kinds of rehabilitation and managing diets for weight loss, if somebody came to me and said, listen, I'm going to start this, what does that require? Does it have any impact on us? I'd have been, that's brilliant. So, and let's say, for instance, because I worked with a lot of people who have metabolic disorder, so they were taking medication for things like type 2 diabetes or certain types of cardiovascular condition, statins and things. If someone said to me, I don't want to be on them, I'd rather use really good food supplementation, change my diet, be more active, can you work with me on this? That's a hallelujah moment. Of course I do. I don't want you on lifelong meds either. And I'd be straight onto the pharmacist, I'd be making phone calls going, this is fantastic, we're going to plan this, and I would love you to be off these medications and managing it that way, because it's far less harmful to the body, it's going to optimize your health status, and it's got a longer route. Brilliant, let's do that. And that's the response your doctors are obliged to give. So you're not asking for permission, you're asking for an engagement and guidance. What needs to be done for me to do this? So be really clear about that. And the last thing I'm going to say about cell membrane permeability, and when you optimize it, if you do like to have a shot or you have a drink once in a while, it's going to save you a fortune. Because previously, if it took you 4 glasses to get a bit tipsy, it's probably going to take you 2 now. And that's one of the things that people say to me a lot. They go, does anybody else say that once they've been on Enzino for a year, 1 glass of wine and they're a bit spinny? Yep. Because why? It's nutrition. It's more permeable membrane. That alcohol's getting in there faster. Boom. So bear that in mind.
So don't enter any drinking contests?
Yeah, don't.
Unless your number is 3 or lower?
Yeah, you're out the league.
Good to know.
Yeah. So thank you for that question. I hope that clarified a few things around that. So thank you all.
So it also will save you money.
Absolutely. Yeah. And on the money bit, I will come to you in a second. On the money bit, I find this fascinating because it's all about choice, isn't it? And if you look at just Balance Oil alone, and then you look at average statistics around coffee consumption, and the average statistic around coffee consumption would say that if the average person took 2 or 3 less coffees a week, they could afford Balance Oil and not even notice. And they'd be better off for the reduction in caffeine. It's a win-win-win. So it's not that it's expensive. It's about how you determine value and where you spend your money. And then my other part about price is when you talk about the cost of something, you've got to correlate it to the value. And I said this earlier on in the room, $10 on a supplement that doesn't work is really expensive. That's really expensive. $40 on one that can transform your health, I think that's actually quite cheap. And when you go to buy a car, if you walk in the showroom and there's a Porsche there and there's a Mercedes and then over here there is a 20-year-old wreck of a car, you know which one is going to cost more and why. They've all got 4 wheels, seats and everything, but you understand the difference in the value. And we make premium products. We make premium, fully functional supplements. It's not the same as comparing it to that one on the bottom shelf in the grocery store that's been discounted 10 times because they can't get rid of it because it doesn't do anything. Now then.
So going into this question, I know that everybody is different in their journeys, but for someone who is on other supplements and has never done the Balance Oil, how long does it take to fully go into effect? Like before you're going to start to feel a difference?
So-
Is there any studies on?
Not studies as such in that sense, but we observe trends, and also your body, human body is actually, it's a set of systems, but those systems work on varying what we call oscillations. And one of the oscillations you all know really well. It's within the 24-hour cycle, the sleep-wake cycle, circadian rhythm. That's an oscillation. If you look at the menstrual cycle, that's an oscillation. In fact, menopause is an oscillation. It's a lifespan oscillation. And there are different types of oscillation that you will have. And so when you start to correct, it doesn't wait 120 days and then go, right, now everything's good. As you start, because remember, cell division is happening every single minute of every single day. So typically what you'll see, there's this golden rule within physiology, which is the 10-day golden rule. And typically, you'll start to see or experience adaptations within a 10-day window, physiologically. It holds up pretty well. You can get some a little bit faster, some a bit slower, but the 10-day holds up pretty well, certainly in most instances. And so it's very common, what you see reported by week 2, improved sleep, low pain around the joints. With athletes, we start to see improvement in recovery. Already by then, they feel like they got more energy, good to go, readiness for exercise. And in non-athletes, you see people saying, I just feel like I've got more energy. I just feel like I've got more energy, I'm sleeping better. And that's very typical from week 2. And then what's really common is you get this kind of middle ground. So somewhere between the end of month 2 and into late month 3, the new normal starts to kick in. And you go, okay, this is the new normal now. So I've got better routines, this is starting to happen. But the best part is, excuse me, and we are starting to evaluate the database on this, it's long-term use. So when you see a person who's not been on Balance Oil for 4 months, but for 4 years, the reciprocal benefits of being in that's the game changer. When you start to look at things of profiles against age, which is another oscillation. When you start to look at profiles of cholesterol, when you start to look at profiles of blood pressure, and so many things, blood sugar control, so many things, you start to see that those who've been on it the longest start to occupy this really tiny space. They book the trend. So by age group, they're in the higher classifications. We see that, we're analysing the data, but I'd say it's one of the things that people, when they're just sharing their stories with me, they'll come and say, I had to go to the doctor, and the doctor didn't understand. I'm 65, and my blood pressure's this, and my resting heart rate's that, and they did this test, and they said, what is it you're doing? And I said, I'm taking Balance Oil, and they went, no, that's rubbish, it can't be that. Like, you just asked me what I was doing. That's what I've been doing. You know what I mean? But you can't alter your belief system because it's not prescribable, and, So they're the kind of things you see. So short term, you start to see those acute, very predictable changes. Long term, you start to see real consolidated changes that book the trend.
I have a lot of questions, but we can just keep rotating through me. My first is, what would be your go-to product for energy? Just in general, quick acting, not 3 or 4 months.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. See, energy has been misinterpreted in the modern world because of caffeine drinks and what people call energy drinks. That's not energy. That is a signal that just tells you you're not tired. Caffeine never gave anyone energy. What it does is the opposite. So remember I told you before about pain medication? Well, actually caffeine works the same way. You're tired, caffeine goes in, shuts down that receptor and says, no, you're not tired, you're fine, keep going. So you get a false positive. It's not a stimulant in the truest sense. And so now everyone thinks energy drink, go in the gym, boom, I'm going to feel great. No, you just blunten the tiredness that you might have felt. So when you start to look at energy, true energy comes from the mitochondria. And the mitochondria is the power plant of the cell. And some cells have hundreds, some have thousands, some have hundreds of thousands. So it all depends on the nature of the function of the cell. And so anything that is mitochondrially protective, so protecting that mitochondria and enabling the mitochondria to get fuel. That's the end point for the things you eat. The end point for what you eat, whether it's a fat, a protein, or a carbohydrate, is the cell. And that fat, primarily carbohydrate, fuels the mitochondria. In most instances of common disorders, you've got mitochondrial dysfunction. And you've also got cells that you can't get nutrition into. And so to me, the number one where people go, I just suddenly feel like I've got lots of energy, balance oil. Because you make the cell membrane permeable. And suddenly the nutrition's getting in and people go, wow, I feel like I've got lots of energy. What's happened is, imagine your mitochondria are lights in the room, but they're on a dimmer switch. And what happens is you start to fuel the cell, you start to protect those mitochondria, you turn the dial up. Those mitochondria are burning brighter. They should always be on, by the way. Your body's never off, it's always on. You go asleep, but the body's still working. And the problem you have is some of them get turned off because they get starved of essential fuel. And so they should be on, and what happens is you turn up the dial and people experience that, and that is real energy. That's not convincing the brain that it's not tired. That's actually turning the energy dial up.
Great, thank you.
Zeal has caffeine.
And Zeal is a high nutrient energy drink. And we have this conversation in the team. I can't teach the whole world a new language. I wish I could. I really wish I could. Because if I could teach the world a whole new language, I would banish the word skinny from the dictionary. It'd be gone. It doesn't exist. It's irrelevant. No one needs the word skinny at all. There's so many things I would change. You've got to work with the common vernacular. It's what people understand. Can you imagine? I go around the world teaching people about omega-3. Imagine if I had to go around the world teaching them it's not actually an energy drink. Let me explain to you metabolic pathways, energy production. This is what caffeine... People go, I need 10 coffees just to listen to you say this. So we kind of go along with it. But also, if you look at Zeal, there are things in there that are mitochondrially functional. There's lots of nutrients in Zeal. You got vitamin B12 in there. You've got things in there that will fuel the cell. So I go along with it. Yes, it's got caffeine, but caffeine's not giving you the energy. Caffeine is just making you not feel tired. But there are other things in Zeal that are legitimately giving you energy. So I'm okay with it. If it didn't have those things, I'd be a bit, come on, what are we doing? But it does. But it's coming at it from a different angle. What doesn't give you energy are chemical, I'm not going to swear. I'm Irish, we swear a lot, but we're okay about it, but the rest of the world's a bit more sensitive. Chemical, so hard not to swear, awful stuff. Chemical, awful stuff in a can.
You have permission to be you here.
Yeah. But those things don't give you energy. They don't fuel the cell. They only make a bad situation worse, and they just ramp you up. High impact caffeine, so that you're buzzing out of your skin and you get this high, and then you get jittery, so you take another one to get rid of the jitters, and you end up in a cycle. It's destroying your gut. It's blocking off receptors, desensitizing receptors. Before you know, you're strung out and highly likely to have a cardiac event. That's not an energy drink. What we do is you provide a high vitamin complex with some other good stuff in there too, largely derived from botanicals, original sources, and there's a bit of caffeine. But the good thing is, a small bit of caffeine, up to 600 mg a day, is really good for you. Anti-Parkinson's, anti-dementia, it's got really good benefits, and it's an antioxidant. So caffeine's not bad, the same way that omega-6 isn't bad. The problem you've got is when someone's having 20 coffees a day. That's the problem. It's excess. Body imbalance. Human biology is all about balance, the right amount of stuff at the right time. But we live in a society of excess.
I have a question about the balance oil. I'm all about the data, right? Like I want to see, that's why I love the test, because you can test at the beginning, take it, and see where you are after 120 days. So what is the data that the customers are taking the oil, where they are, let's say, America's 24-1, right? So let's say I tested and I was 30-1, and I was surprised it was that high. So if I take the oil for 4 months, what is the data showing that the oil will do for me to reduce the numbers?
So the average, I'm trying to think off the top of my head, we published and you may have seen this, we published a peer-reviewed article last year, the #1 downloaded research article in 2025, where we mapped the world. It was based on a sample size of that database of around about 591,000 samples that we analysed for it. We're working on paper 2 now, that includes nearly up to 800,000 samples. And as a generic average, when you see somebody who starts, takes the balance oil as recommended to the 120 day, if I remember off the top of my head, transfer to beneath 4-1, which is the cutoff it's measured by, because that's the clinical therapeutic relevance. is 97.5% of people. And actually, some of the ones who take longer fall into two groups: elite athletes and chronically ill. They take a bit longer to go into. Elite athletes, because of the amount of inflammatory markers they're turning over every day, and they utilize more of it as fuel. And then you're trying to offset chronic disease. So you're fighting a bit of a battle. The average, typical, if there's such a thing, normalized user, I believe, and if you go and it's 96, don't come and tell me I was terrible, but it's somewhere in the high 90% within that 120 days.
I just want to state, I thought I was living a healthy life when I first took the test, and I was surprised it was 33 to 1. Mm-hmm. On the 5th month, I took my next test. I didn't change my diet. I didn't do anything different except take the products, and I was 1.8 to 1.
Wow.
Yeah. And I love hearing these things, and I never want to get to the point where that doesn't have an impact on me. But 5 years in now, I enjoy the fact that I've heard that story well over 5,000 times now.
Is there a difference in like the speech to get a better number if I take this oil versus the premium oil that has more polyphenols in it?
No, because it's measured by red blood cell count, which has on average 120 plus minus 10-day lifespan. Mm-hmm. So whether it happens quicker, we're not able to detect because we'd have to measure it sooner. The benefit of Balance Oil Plus is the increased level of phytonutrients. And I say the same thing to everybody. It's not just about having the best one. Take a really good, honest look at your diet and go, would I benefit from more polyphenols? So, without being arrogant, I'm really not being arrogant at all, but my diet at home is largely plant-based. I'm not a vegetarian, so I eat protein, but I start. Every single main meal I have a day starts with a variety of vegetables, nuts, these kind of things, and then I'll decide what proteins go with it. And so for me, I'm really happy with the Standard Balance Oil. It got me into the right ratio and it's kept me there. Really happy with that. At home, I take 2 Extend every day. But when I'm traveling, I take 4 because I've got less control over the diet. So I always encourage people, think about how you eat and what else you can adjust. But I would also say that, for people who are, let's say for instance, I don't like to talk about it in curative terms, but what I will say, for people who've had kind of a history of adverse skin reactions, food intolerances, the increased polyphenol does seem to have a bigger positive impact with those groups. So it's worth the consideration. But all things being equal, and if you didn't worry about cost, for me and the way I live, I'd still take the Standard Oil. Because remember, we're in such a privileged position because the Standard Oil is 5 times the typical polyphenol count of a really good olive oil. So it's already really high anyway. It really is. I mean, obviously the Balance Oil Premium is the Revu oil, which is just exceptional. And then at home, I have Revu oil, and I use that even when I'm cooking and when I've made like a salad. So I'm getting those polyphenols somewhere else. So just be honest with yourself. If you're not, it's worth paying the extra.
Today, a friend of mine asked, what can she do because she said that her supplements, the HRT, they are back. She's not getting her medication, and she wanted to know what I was doing and what she can do to feel better.
I mean, it's really difficult to answer that because there's a whole host of past medical history, lifestyle questions that you'd have to ask, dosage of HRT, where she's at in that kind of perimenopausal, menopausal process. So it's really hard to answer those things. And I'm reluctant to give a personal take on it because it can be taken the wrong way. I am, for instance, menopause is not a disease. It is a biological rhythm. It's a biological rhythm. We're dealing with exasperation of menopausal symptoms at the moment. I think it's not because of the menopause itself. It's because of the stress of the world. It's because of the types of foods, sedentary lifestyles, all these things. There's been confounded impacts on the experience that lots of women are having. And so I'm never one of those people that says, stop your medication and do this. I'm always one of those people who says, start to implement some of those other lifestyle changes, start to introduce things. The key things are the key things for everyone. look at your look at your cellular health, balance oil, xenobiotic. Everyone in the world should take xenobiotic. We know that most people get less than 50% of the recommended dietary fiber intake every single day. So you're going to restore the gut. The gut is a central regulator when it comes to things like immune response, endocrine activity, and endocrine plays a huge part in menopause, and serotonin channels, which is mood state. Calm the gut. Xenobiotic, calm the gut. Look at the balance oil with regards to restoring cellular health. Encourage them to try and increase their general physical activity. Exercise has been proven as one of the single most effective ways to manage menopausal symptoms. So there are things you can build in, and then once you've really started a solid habit of that, maybe over 6 weeks, same advice. Go back to your doctor and say, listen, this is what I'm doing. This is what I've experienced as a change. Do we review the medicine? Do we take it back a little bit? Because what I'd like to do is work with this to get past having to use it. I understand it because it's the mechanistic model that we've lived under for a long, long time. And I think that people in the medical world do this with the very best of intentions. I think you come to them with a series of challenges that you're facing because you're menopausal, and they go, great, well, let's do this. We've got this that can help. But you know, and they know, it's not a cure. It's a management strategy. And there are other ways to manage it that have less side effects and less harmful in the long run. So if you can reduce your reliance on it, that's a positive step forward. So that's what I advocate, is to look at those things and try and move it that way. But do it as a process. I'm not, people have a different take on it. I know that there are people on our scientific advisory board who are stronger on this. But I think it's always about engaging the process and then transfer. Do it safely, do it with supervision, do it intelligently, and then move forward positively.
So would you recommend her to use any of the Xeno products?
Yes, balance oil and xenobiotic for sure.
Okay.
Definitely.
So just on that, I've had surgical menopause since it's been more than 30 years now.
Yeah.
I had a total hysterectomy. And I chose to go the natural supplement way. And so I've been using a natural supplement for many years, and it just keeps my symptoms under control.
Mm-hmm.
So I was wondering how this would actually affect that, if there'd be any way I could wean off of that.
I guess it's the same answer, but in a different context. It's the same answer. I mean, to me, even from, I never see balance oil, xenobiotic, or extend. If you look at those three, I never see them as an intervention. I see them as a really intelligent lifelong strategy to do health well. Because you've covered your bases, and then you're empowered to make really good food choices. So to me, I'm not doing it for a definable outcome in that context. I'm doing it because I know this is the simple, most effective, reliable way that I can bolster my nutritional health and then kick on and do other things. So some of the things, and I don't know what you're taking, but some of the things can be more interventional, but you end up on an interventional supplement for 30 years. That was never how it was meant to be. And so I would just encourage you grade across gradually. And always try to, it's a bit hard because when you've taken something, and I appreciate it, and I say this, I'm obviously not a woman, so I'm not mansplaining, but I have worked in women's health. And I was once the head of physiology for the Women's England football team, soccer team. And at that time, it wasn't menopause, but I was dealing a lot with menstrual factors with those teams. And so I really delved into it. And as a chronobiologist, which is my real scientific background, we're obsessed with oscillations and changes to the body that work off endocrine interactions. And so I ended up down this pathway of learning more and more about menopause because it just appeared on my radar. And that's why I've got some quite strong opinions about it. So when you're taking something, and maybe it's managing night sweats, maybe it's managing mood and things.
Those two things, yeah.
Yeah, so it's working well. It's really hard to back off because you know how difficult it was when they weren't there. Mm-hmm. And you don't want to go back to that. But then what happens then is you get like prolonged reliance. So I think it's always good, once in a while, back it down, dial it down. What happens if I reduce? Do I see any sign of it? And, don't fall for the trap of, self-prophecy fulfilling. If I don't take this, that will come back. Say, no, let's see, I've been honest, this might be gone now. I might not be actually managing a condition anymore. and try and lower it down. And one of the things I most encourage people to do is a gradual swap out. So increase your balance oil up, your xenobiotic, you extend whilst you're graduating them down. Do like an effective swap out.
Okay, 2 questions and a comment. I did find a PubMed study about saffron supporting women's emotions during menopause. So for the ladies that asked, that's the Viva. So that might be good for supporting some of their needs. I have more questions about the vagus nerve and the gut-brain connection. I heard you go into it a little bit today, but could you expound a little bit more on like which products are going to be the best for supporting that? I know that's a huge conversation, but
it is. But it's also quite simple, to be fair, because actually, so the vagus nerve is the hard wiring of the gut to the brain, and it's that pinch point, what we call the gut-brain axis. And it's true that when you look at the line of travel, if you look at any of the kind of active pathways, of which there are numerous, neurological, neurophysiological, that 90% of the traffic goes up to the brain. So the gut is actually the prime indicator. So it's sending messages to the brain. This is happening, that's happening, you need to modulate this, you need to manage that. And it also affects mood. It really does. I mean, I'm not going to get lost on it, but I will just make a comment. The person who first identified ADHD said clearly it was a nutritional problem and shouldn't be medicalized, so they immediately medicalized it. So, and that was the opening statement with it. So we know this, the serotonin channels are in the gut, it's the indicator. And it is the first brain. And actually I know that we will get to a point, probably in my lifetime, where the gut and the brain are seen as one organ in two, like there's a proximal and a distal. That's how it will eventually be, because they're so intertwined. If you calm the gut, you calm the mind. If you calm the gut, you calm the mind. Xenobiotic calms the gut. That's a fact. You introduce the right broad spread brand of dietary fibres, you start to make sure that you're cultivating a restored, calmed gut, and then you will start to have a positive influence on that direction of travel that is going from the gut to the brain. But I also need to say, and it seems like every answer to every question is me saying balance on xenobiotic, but also polyphenols do that. And omega-3 has it's not, I say this all the time, so forgive me. Omega-3 is not a prebiotic, but it has a prebiotic-like functionality, and so do polyphenols. The gut loves them. And that's been a part of the problem why some omega-3s don't work. Because by the time what survives the stomach gets to the gut goes, brilliant, we're going to use this. And so very little gets to the cell. And so we know when we look at any kind of our data and we look at the impact that xenobiotic has, balance oil becomes a multiplier. When you look at the positive impact xenobiotic has, it can look amazing. And then you go, ooh, but what's it like for the people who take this plus balance oil? And you go off the scale. So you always get a bigger response when you combine the two. And there's a complete logic to that. That's because of, as I've explained, the function, they have a function like a prebiotic, and they're both anti-inflammatory. And remember the hotspot, and I always promise people like Orion and Dag that I won't mention inflammation in talks. This is not a talk, it's a Q&A. But the hotspot for silent inflammation is within the gut. That's the hotspot for it. We have systemic inflammation for sure, but the hotspot for silent inflammation, systemic chronic inflammation, is the gut. So when you control markers of inflammation within the gut, you calm everything down. And forgive me, because I say this a lot, but one of my favorite quotes ever is from Marcus Aurelius, which is that the closer you are to calm, the closer you are to strength. And I think that is 100% true when it comes to the gut, immune function, endocrine activity, and mental strength. Be calm. Calm the gut, restore the gut, and galvanize the mind.
And I think that the initial data that we've gotten on the gut health test tells an interesting story about this, because if you sleep less, your gut is struggling.
Yeah.
And when you sleep less, you're less calm. So it's actually showing up in the test results so far. This is preliminary data, but it's very, very interesting.
It is. And it's consistent with what we know about what causes stress and systemic stress. And we're seeing that across the data. And it's also those same insights that show us the multiplying effect of combining balance oil with xenobiotic. Because we always start out, especially me, I always start out with this notion of, I know everyone needs more dietary fibres, so the dietary fibres should do this. And I'm aware of the functionality of polyphenols, but I think it's the fibres that are going to lead the charge. And then you actually find out that the combined effect is far greater. And in some instances, the polyphenol is close to the same impact that the fibres has. And I think that's why some people experience, they'll just do balance oil. They'll do balance test, start balance oil, and they experience quite a revelationary whole body improvement. I think one, the body has been crying out for something positive for so long, you get this overwhelming response, but also balance oil covers a lot more than even the way we simplify it to the notion of the cell. But then on that point, that's what you are. You're a collection of trillions of cells. You know, and it's, I love this phrase, it's an orchestra of cells. They come together for a lifetime, and you want them all to sing the same song. And so if you are thinking of health on the terms of cellular health, you are literally thinking of health in the most profound way. If you address the cell, you are fully addressing yourself. That's what it is. And before I go off my TED talk on this, if you even look at the adaptive immune system, so you have aspects of that are like surveillance system, CD4 and CD8, and they are the part of the communication pathway that works with T cells and B cell response, that are looking around your system to go, what's you and what's not you. I love philosophy, but actually your physiology knows itself. It knows who itself is versus what it isn't. Autoimmune disease is where that system breaks down and it starts to attack itself. But again, the surveillance system, it isn't looking and going, right, let's just go and sit back and look at the heart. It's looking at the cells of the heart. It's looking at the cells of the spleen, of the kidneys, of the liver. We are talking about cellular interaction. This is biochemical pathways. And so if you correct the cell, you correct the system. And remember, everything is biochemistry. We only talk about it as biology when it becomes systems based. So if you take everything back to what it actually is, you go back to the cell. If you optimize the cell, you optimize your health.
So you were talking about the gut-brain connection. The enzyme action is important. What supplements do you have that help enhance that, or besides just eating good foods that have?
Well, that's it. I mean,
the protein like that builds the GLP-1 and all that type of stuff.
Well, fiber prompts GLP-1 most profoundly, and protein works on an mTOR pathway, but is in itself pro-anabolic. Omega-3 is a pro-anabolic signaling messenger. So when you start to look at protein synthesis and what would actually inspire a particular kind of response that's desirable, preservation or gain of lean muscle mass, for instance, then it's actually things like the omega-3 and the fiber that is fiber is not proactive from an anabolic point of view, but omega-3 is. So when you start to then look at enzyme activity, and really what you're trying to do is you are trying to ensure there's a sufficient amount of vitamins, minerals, because enzyme activity is literally the fine trail of biochemistry. Once you get back down to biochemistry, you're talking about vitamin A, E, B12, C. You're literally coming down to component parts. And omega-3 and 6 play a part in that part of the ratio too, and certain types of proteins. And so, whereas we don't have so many mono products, we have more kind of formulations. If you look at the health protocol, you cover all those pathways. So if you go from balance oil to xenobiotic to extend, you actually are facilitating, and this is what I encourage people all the time, this is how your body communicates. And if there's a deficiency, there's a breakdown in communication. And so when you start to look at enzymatic interaction, when you start to look at certain types of pathway, whether it's mTOR or it's a cascade pathway, you just need to have all the right components lined up. And that's why deficiencies lead to breakdown in communication. And when there's a breakdown in the communication, there is an opportunity for what you're fighting against to get the upper hand. It's as simple as that. It really is as simple as that. It's never as simple as that, but that's what it is when you draw it out. You know, in the past when I joined in Xeno, I used to have a few of my diagrams from when I was still teaching at the medical school, and I would show immune response in a viral condition. I would show it in a normative condition. I would show it in an exercise condition. Because you can't tell any difference. You can't tell any difference. The activation itself, it's the rate of activation and what it's addressing that alters. These things are consistent. It's the way in which the body functions. So when you look at those kind of things, the problem you have with enzymatic processes is they've been starved. It's not the same as the receptor one I described before, but it's similar in as much as what you happen is that there are dead ends in communication that should have been a comma or a dash. And that's the problem with enzymatic. And that's even, if we're going to go into it, this notion of people not facilitating enough endocrine downtime. The endocrine system's constantly responding. There should be endocrine downtime. There should be immune downtime. The immune system shouldn't be on all the time. But because of compromises, deficiencies, lack of mobility, people's endocrine immune system is on constantly. Now, answer me this. This is really simple. So if there's a biochemist in the room, I apologize, but essentially I'm right. If you go out into the garage and turn the car on and just let it run, it's going to run. Engine. It could be fuel, it could be water, it could be that there's too much heat. Because the engine is efficient and it's a brilliant tool at doing what it does, but it was never designed to run forever. And if you do want it to keep running, you have to keep topping it up. You have to manage all those processes. What we have is a huge amount, billions of people who are on constantly. There's no downtime. There's no time for the system to reboot and recalibrate. And that's a big issue. And so when you take the health protocol from the cell to the gut to all that biochemical information, putting those vitamins and minerals in, you're actually giving the system everything it wants to function the way it needs to do. So you've advanced your health in that step. It's a gross approach to quite nuanced challenges.
How would you kind of describe Xenogene to someone that doesn't know anything about it?
As we age, what happens is some of those cellular turnover, the cell is meant to be eliminated from the body. And you can be left with either a senescent cell, which is dysfunctional, or what we call a zombie cell, which is a cell that's no longer functional, doesn't do anything, but it hasn't gone. The body hasn't cleared it out. And so you can get a backlog of cells. And the problem with that is it can slow down other processes. And dysfunctional cells actually can confuse the message. So that can lead to, I don't want to go there, but that can lead to some really negative outcomes. Xenogene.
Well, it does lead to less energy because they're consuming energy, but they're doing nothing. So I think that's
senescent dysfunctional. Yeah, the zombie ones are just causing a clog.
Yeah.
Imagine this, going back to receptors and these kind of things. There's a doorway here, and really you should have free passage of dynamic cells who are conveying a message. But all around the door are these zombie cells. So they'll get through, but it takes them twice as much effort. It's another delay in the system. And then you've got senescent cells dysfunctional. They're taking energy up, but they're kind of, it's having the heating on but the windows open. So they're taking energy, but they're not doing anything with it. They're just like throwing it away. And so when you look at Xenogene, that is targeted. I love Paul's description of it. It's like Teflon coating the senescent cell to get them out. So what you're doing is actually, you are facilitating a normal process. You're enabling a normal process, but it's targeting those cells. You're empowering the cells that would eradicate them and move them on so that they can shift them. And anyone really over the age of, 40 rarely, I would say, but you could start from the age of 23 because it's related to aging aspects of cell behavior. You don't typically start to notice this until you're in your late 30s and 40s, but with the early advance of aging now, because of lifestyle factors, it's probably going to be start saying to people, yeah, you're 25, you should start taking it. And maybe it's good practice anyway, because you're going to get zombie cells and senescent cells if you exercise a lot, because that increases the rate of cellular turnover. You're creating more wastage of a cell point of view, and you want to clear that out as well. So that's what Xenogene does. It enables that process. And, the people talk about anti-aging, and I get it. And again, it's about verbiage and how you describe things. I think it's just about resetting, recalibrating, and normalizing aging so that people aren't aging too early. That's what I think it is. We've got carried away with this notion of aging because we're obsessed with the fountain of youth. But actually, if we age well, we're capable of so much in our 50s, 60s, and 70s. The decrepit
80s and 90s, 120.
If you look at blue zones, our decrepitude is down to our behavior and not our physiology.
I have a potential customer right now, and they are looking at wanting to do surgery for him, and he has diverticulitis. What would you say to him if he was teeter-tottering?
I would say to him that obviously it's an itis, so it's an inflammatory primed condition, and anything that's going to reduce what you'd call normalized systemic inflammation is going to help. But as with always, whenever anyone is on a surgical or treatment pathway, just have that conversation. Just say this is, and again, you're not asking for permission, you're asking for agreement. I'm going to do this. What does that require as a change from you with regards to my medication? Because I'm going to do this because I know that this is going to manage that. It's going to better empower my overall nutritional health status. So what does that mean for you? Do you have to change the medication? Do you have to change the dose? And it could be if there's a surgery coming up that they'll say, we don't want you to take anything because of the, even if there's a 1% increase of a risk of surgery, you shouldn't do it. So they might say, don't do it for that, but then afterwards, let's have that conversation. So just approach it reasonably.
Have you ever seen where it could be reversed? I know it's manageable, but where, how you said in another meeting earlier this week that it is cell level and that you're seeing like diabetes where it reverses. Have you seen that with diverticulitis? I
haven't personally, but what I understand of the pathology, you could technically get it to the point where it's manageable without medication. And also, by the way, you can't reverse type 2 diabetes, but you can live without drugs, which is effectively the same thing. You can reverse pre-diabetes. And to me, if you can live a normative life through intelligent food choices, food supplementation, activity, and not take the drugs, that to me is reversal or elimination under a different term. Remember, the problem you have is that once you've had a type of pathology, disease, condition, your susceptibility to it is increased significantly. And that's why doctors are reluctant to say you're cured, because doctors don't work in the cure game, they work in the management game. And so with a condition like that, if you said to me, with any condition, here's your options: lifelong drugs with known and unknown side effects and a quadruple effect, or you're going to manage this through your diet, your lifestyle, every single day of the week, every day of the week. The problem we've got, but we're at a tipping point, is previously there was a bit of an attitude of going, you can't do it that way, you need to do it this way. And it's just never been true, it's not true now. But thankfully, we're at a point of a breakthrough now where more and more doctors are going, of course you can manage it that way. And that's the way we should support you to do it. Because I'm not going to lay any blame, because it's not fair. And I've said before, I'm very proud to have worked in the hospital. I've got lots of friends and colleagues who still do. They do what they do with the best of intentions. But it's like any kind of industry. It becomes a little bit next, take this, next, that's what we do. And there are huge waiting lists. So it just becomes so easy to do what you do. But I would encourage you to have meaningful conversations with your doctor. This is what I'd like to do. I want you to support me with this. And not, can I? Because you don't need their permission. I am going to, and I want you to support me with this and work with me to make it happen.
So my question is about the test. Since in America, the doctors don't test you on annual exam for the omega ratio. I was looking for some answer, and I did a blood test through Function Health, where I tested my biomarkers. That's where I saw my ratio for the first time. And the ratio was about 9 to 1. Mm-hmm. And then I did a Zinzino test, and it came back at 30 to 1. Can you talk about the difference between Zinzino test and the blood work test?
Yeah, wherever you go, you're not going to find one as accurate, 100%. And anyone with a different lab can come up, we can have that conversation. Secondly, you can't test between two labs. You've got to embed the exact same test method and analysis at the same time on the same type of kit. That's just good science. They're incomparable. And remember, for us, we're using whole blood. The other one, was it plasma or was it whole blood? Whole blood. So we're using whole blood and we're quantifying a total from a whole blood sample. So ours is literally, that is what is there. That's it. There's no algorithm. That is what is there. It's a total referenced amount and a ratio. I can't speak on behalf of them because I don't know, but what I do know is if you look at the VITAS laboratories, they are certified to the absolute highest standard, and they participate in third-party testing. So other laboratories come in and test their accuracy. Is there error? Because there's always error. Is it consistent? how consistent is what we call the coefficient of variation, and VITAS are unsurpassed. And so
I took the Zinzino oil and I retested the blood work a month later, and it dropped to 8, from 9.5 to 8. So I saw it was working on the blood work. But I also looked up ChatGPT, what's the difference between two tests, and it said the Zinzino test looks more of like 120 days of.
Yeah. Well, I would ask a simple question, and that is, what did they test for at the other party? Because if we compare apples with pears, it's always going to be a difference. But when we get apples to apples, it's going to be more similar. And if you have the same kind of apple tree, it's going to be even more similar. And if it's from the same tree, we actually start getting similar apples to compare. And that's the main reason for different in answers, is that they include different types of fat into the same answer.
But I think to your point, is there's a homeostatic test, so they're just measuring, it's an acute test there and then, so it's not quantifying 120 days.
They take a bunch of vials of blood work, and then they test for different things. And one of them was the omega.
But which omegas in it and which omega-6s? That's my question. Yeah. Because if when we say omega-6 to omega-3, that means specifically in our test that you look at arachidonic acid, AA, and then eicosanoic acid, EPA.
It's a different test. Like it's not done anywhere. And I study functional medicine health coaching, so I'm learning more. There are certain tests you cannot even ask the doctor to do in the US because they don't have it. And so like the only one you have is like a blood work, but you still have to ask for it. So I was just trying to see how.
And it probably is, like Orion said, you can't compare apples and pears. And I don't know enough about the test, but all I know is about the accuracy of ours. But what I will say is that when I first heard the Zinzino and the test, and I even knew who VITAS were, so I knew the VITAS were incredible. But just for fun, because at that time I was the lab director for the Queen's Laboratory, which is Greater Manchester, and we have it was £30 million laboratory. And so just for fun, I got a few of the PhD students, we had a few people, and we tested at the same time. So we literally did the VITAS test, and we did it on our own kit. And our kit's very similar. Spectrum analysis, we knew it because it was a modification of the Trondheim test. And we waited. So we knew our test within minutes, and we waited for the results back from VITAS. And this was a way for us to go, let's see how similar it is. And within a decimal point, they were the same. And then we thought, right then, so now the interesting bit is to measure the change. So we had people, we knew people, friends of ours, all kinds, taking the product, and we measured the change. And actually it was closer. So when we measured the change, the data was even closer. It was more accurate as it went down. And that was a big part for me, and I even knew who VITAS was. And that was a big part for us to go, we've independently sense checked this. We know it's consistent when you run the same type of test. And that was even us with 2 different laboratories. But we were doing the 120-day retrospective modified Trondheim test. So we were looking at those 11 essential fatty acids. We had an understanding of the breakdown that they looked at, and we got a very similar outcome. But most places, don't do the same test. So it's really hard to compare.
I have a physical coming up next Wednesday. I'm 70 years old, and it's going to be a pretty thorough physical. Is there anything I could ask my doctor to test for that I could compare next year when I have my annual physical to see how this changes?
Obviously, because I'd imagine any of the kind of things we do that you're going to do with us. On your physical with your doctor, they're going to measure just key attributes. So they're going to look at things like resting heart rate pre-exercise, they're going to look at blood pressure, they're going to measure your cholesterol as a ratio and a total. So all of those things are pretty standard, what we call, medical overall as a check-in. And a big part of the reason why, Zinzino does what it does is that we can actually provide more enhanced analysis and tests that are more meaningful and measurable of the change that happens between the two. But if you can, because I think it'd be interesting, I do think it'd be interesting, I would suggest to them, if they can in any way, measure an aspect of your fatty acid profile in relationship to your cholesterol ratio. That'd be interesting. I don't know if they offer it, and if it costs a fortune, don't do it. But if they offer it as a part of the assay and it's reasonable, I think that'd be really interesting, because we know there are. Have you ever heard the term inflammaging? So as we age, there's a certain sense of increased susceptibility to inflammation. So it's inflammaging, and it's a real marker of advanced aging process. But there's also a lot of data that's correlating that to the omega-6-3 ratio and then the LDL-HDL ratio. So it'd be interesting to correlate them and measure the two.
Is there a way that we can search and find out how many reps there are in our specific area? Because I'm suspecting I'm the only one in my county.
Jerry, where are you at? In South
Wilson County.
Yeah, we don't really have that. We are going to develop where you can see how many tests is done in your area, which would kind of give you a hint on, then we could have the 2% area. So they're hitting higher numbers of testing versus the lower areas, which would be a competition between counties in the end of the day. It would be fun.
I've talked to a lot of moms lately, and
a lot of
moms,
yeah,
are interested in creating income. And I'm just wondering if you were to have someone in front of you who's like just a regular human, who said like, yes, I want to make $2,000 to $3,000 a month.
Mm-hmm.
What would you do with them? How would you get them started? What might their plan be?
So it's pretty standard, because it's just following the basic system. And in the basic system, you will, during the first 120 days, try to complete the Fast Start program. When we get into actually taking action, we will discover something within the first 60 days. And that is if they're very good on customers, but not so able to get a partner, or if they're very good on partners and they're not so good at getting customers, or they're very good at both, or they're very bad at both. And every one of them can be helped, okay? But if they're very bad at both, then you're like me. That was my first 4 years in the profession. I didn't able to recruit a single person for the first 2 years. And I was better at customers. I did have some customers. And then I didn't manage to build a real team in my first 4 years. And then something changed. I'd grown enough. I'd read enough. I'd studied enough. I'd practiced enough. And then I launched over again, and I put 3,000 people in the business in 90 days. So I believe 100% in everyone if they're willing to continue to grow. I did for the January kickoff, I did a video, which was just a very simple analogy on what ambition means and how that drives you to growth. And when you grow, the things that were impossible becomes easy over time. And I just had plates where I drew different messages on, and then I put each one on the floor. And each plate represented a 1% growth. And how often can you grow 1%? Could we grow 1% a day, potentially? Sometimes we could. You can grow 1% a week, or 1% a month. So if you just imagine that we grow 1% a month, well, that's 12% a year. Actually a little bit more because it's compound, so it's more like 15% a year. And then if you grow 15% a year compounded, then every 5 years you double. So now if you think about something that then used to be impossible, and in this video, you can go and watch it, it's on the Cincino, not TV, it's Cincino Play, and probably in the GoCore app as well. It's pretty fascinating because the goal that I was trying to reach when I was standing on the floor was difficult to reach. then when I was standing on the 12 plates, so 12% growth, I could hold my hand there all the time and it wasn't difficult anymore. But if I would have gone 180 plates, that would be as tall as me. I know the goal would be by my knees. So the goal was a walk in the park. So if they're willing to grow, then we can help anybody. Now, back to the ones that are good at customers. Now, the easiest way then to put $2,000 in their pocket, if they're very good with customers, is to go top to 100. That's $1,000 a month in then recurring income. And then if you have about 30 new sales a month, that's another $1,000 from that on the 30% cash bonuses. And between that, you then very easily can pick up to $1,000 a month.
Sorry, what was that second one? Top 100 and what?
So top 10 100. So you have the recurring income and then you have the new sales each month. Now, if they're very good at recruiting, well, then you build teams. And then you build to executive and you make a little bit over 1,000 as a new executive. And then you build towards diamond, and on that journey you'll get through 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, and a diamond is typically $5,000 a month. That's a team of probably about 100 people, having about 10 to 15 customers each on average. You're growing towards 25 over time, and that's going to be about $5,000 a month. But no, you need to be good at recruiting to do that very quickly. So I recommend you start with the Fast Start program on everyone, like they're going to accomplish it. If they accomplish Fast Start program, they're good at both. So that's fantastic. But if they struggle with one of them, direct them in the direction where they're strong, because you're more likely to survive if you do what you're strong at. Then you know their weakness. So you have them read books or watch videos, or you coach them on the areas of the weakness so that they grow in that area over time.
I have a question. So I would love to bring the balanced oil and the test to the doctor's office. So let's say if I go see my doctor, my dermatologist, my regular doctor, how would I approach them? And how would you see it scaling if I did it with a doctor's office?
So I'm going to have Art speak about exactly what they do in the US there, but I'm going to give you an advice before I let him speak. So Art's going to get to speak maybe. And that is that some of the most difficult people to talk to is those that have knowledge from before. Especially if they don't think you have a higher credentials than you. So my recommendation is to go and get 20, 30 normal people first. And then you have practice a little bit so you don't freeze, you don't get nervous, you don't get stressed. And you have also had some testimonials and you know that it works, so you're confident. And then you can talk to them, and I would approach it from what it did for me or what it did for some of the people that you've been working with, and then pique their interest in themselves becoming a customer. Because if they experience that it does something for themselves, then they get really interested. Over to you, Art.
Yeah, so 100% on that. Get some confidence. And then say, hey, Dr. Seuss, just to be generic, because I don't want to call anybody specific doctor here. But the approach is to go slow, to go fast. Right? So once you have the confidence to talk to somebody of higher authority, but the reality is they eat the same food, they're waking up at the same time, they have the same stresses in their life, so they're experiencing the difficulties of an everyday person as well. And what I've seen works is you go to the exact same play that you would with your mom or your sister or the friend at the soccer game or the podcast that you're on, and you would say, here's what I learned, Doc, I just need a second, and you tell me if what I've learned is directionally correct. This is an omega-6. What I found out is essential. Your body doesn't make it for the most part. Your body has to have it, and you get it from your food or a supplement. And then I found out that this is a 3, say the same thing, and then I learned there's a number. I shouldn't have more than 3 of these for every 1 of these in my cells. So I took a test, a blood-based test, and that told me the answer. My number was really high. So I had a decision. What do I do? Do I eat my way to health, or then this company happened to have a product and I took it, every day, quick shot. And 120 days later, I took the test again and man, I was good to go.
So I have a friend.
And a doctor, just to finish that up, a doctor that their goal is to improve the health of their patients should be intrigued by that. If they believe in omegas or not, they may be saying take 1,000 milliliters or 2,000, but that's the wrong question. The right answer is it getting you into the right balance? Now, I wouldn't approach the doctor and say, I want you to sell this to all your patients. Just like Orion said, so doc, would you be interested in finding out your number? Right? Just have the courage and they'll, sure. And let the test do a lot of the talking for you. They're going to respect the test. They're going to respect the results of the test. They're going to find that interesting. And when their number comes back, not in balance. And I would recommend that their spouse does it too, so now you have 2 case studies. Now they have a dilemma, the Hippocratic Oath, do no harm. Okay, I need to probably do something for myself. I'm going to try the product. And now do I keep this a secret for my patients or not? That's going to be up to them. And that's the approach that I see pretty well.
Yeah, thank you. So I have a friend that has a clinic. Her husband is a podiatrist. And I introduced her to the idea of Zinzino. And she's very interested. So what would you recommend as the next step? Bring her to the call?
Yeah, the first step, in my opinion, get her tested. She should take the test to experience what this is. Let the markers talk to her in her language. And then as she has questions, what would you like to know first? What would you like to know next? Put her on the phone or a Zoom with somebody who can answer that.
So let me give you an example of what Art said now, and I'm just going to turn it on the head. And I'm going to say, okay, I've got this brilliant medication that will reduce your blood pressure. You need it. You need it. You need it. Everyone here needs it. And you're all going to say, no, I don't need that. Or I don't know if I need it. I want to get my blood pressure checked first. So now, nutrition has for ages done this. Take this. Take 2 of it. If you take 3 of it, then it's going to work. Just say, try this one instead. These products over here, they're going to be brilliant. And then you're going to feel this and that and so on. And we have then sold it in a way that is the wrong way to sell it. Because do I need vitamin D3? Technically, everyone here needs vitamin D3, but if my level is 60 nanograms, I shouldn't be taking more vitamin D3. But if you're then coming with a brilliant vitamin D3 product, you're saying, you need vitamin D3, it's the wrong approach. And that's where test-based nutrition was my big revolution, because I loved nutrition. I started when I was 14. I was so interested in it. Started selling when I was 17, became successful when I was 21, and hated it by the time I was 28. I weighed 68 kilograms, so that's however how many pounds it is. No, not 220, 68. 68, that was like 140, 145, something like that. And I started selling diet products. And then when I was 28, I weighed more than 100 kilograms. And then on my 30th birthday, I weighed 106 kilograms after selling diet products for 13 years.
He's over 200.
No, I was 250.
Wow.
Okay? That wasn't very successful from a health standpoint. And that's why I hated nutrition, because we were having people try all kinds of different things, and our answer was that if it worked, great, keep taking it. If it didn't work, then take more, or take something different, or it's like, it wasn't science. So I didn't stop taking nutrition myself, but I couldn't go and promote it anymore. Then fast forward, I lose all my weight, I get down to 78 kilos, which is hopefully what I am today. I had some lunch, so maybe I'm 78.5. So I was getting my health back from that standpoint. I was physically in very good shape. I was feeling great. I always slept great, and I was running every day. I was going to the gym, and I mean, we were on a yacht together that summer in Saint-Tropez. It was a gift from my wife for her 30th birthday, and I was so ecstatic that summer because since I met Hilda, this was the first time I could outrun her. Because it used to be that I had carried a little bit more weight, and she went to the gym a lot. And she was running all the time, and if we would go mountain hiking, which I loved, when I was like really starting to breathe, then she'll start running circles around me just to make a point, you know, up the hill, and I was like going as fast as I could. And this summer I could outrun her. It was so amazing. But that was also that fall that I lost my health. And I was taking 300 euros a month in supplements. I'm a foodie, so I did eat a variation. I did everything that I knew in the world to be healthy. I didn't overdo anything at the negative side in anything, but I still lost my health. After taking omega-3s, since I was 7 years old, was still taking it every single day when I got sick. I was taking I could mention all the brands of products I was using. I shouldn't do that for the purpose of compliance. Then I got worse. And then I got worse, and it was a stomach issue, and it got so bad that when I had a meal, I had pain through my entire body to the level where it was hard to stand up. 36, 37 years old. When I slept at night, I spent up to 20 minutes getting out of bed, and every morning I had to stretch, and I had pain everywhere. I was moving like an old man. And that's where I got that call where somebody wanted me to look at the product. And it wasn't to look at the product for my health, because they didn't know that I had any health issues. I didn't tell anybody. I wasn't open about it because I didn't want it to be an issue. And I didn't know if I was ever going to get well again, so there was no point in talking about it. But I went to see all the alternatives, all the nutritionists, all the hospital exams that I could do. But no one could really give me a clear answer. I got some direction from some people that I'm very grateful for. Made me do a lot of research into leaky gut and so on. So I did read plenty of books on that, and that changed my entire diet over to just eating fish, a little bit of meat, a little bit of vegetables boiled, and then some potato and some salad. So that was the diet I had. And then I stopped taking all the supplements except from omega-3s. And then I got invited to this investment opportunity. And they were presenting me the precursor of the Balance Oil, because it was called Oil for Life back then. And I looked at that, I sat through the presentation, and they had a new angle on the presentation, but the information was known to me. For a whole life, I tried to keep my omega-3 levels where they were supposed to be. That was what I did. I mean, I sold, before I was 30 years old, my teams had sold over $100 million worth of omega-3s. I was the biggest fan. I'm Norwegian. Where do you think most of the omega-3 in the world comes from? Norway is the inventors of omega-3. In fact, it's Hilda's grandfather that got the King's Medal of Honor for leading the research institute that named the DHA and the EPA fatty acid in 1900 and something. I don't remember the date right now. I think it was 48. And that was a co-working project with Iceland, which whatever isn't produced in Norway is from Iceland, or it's from Japan or Canada. It's a few countries, but very few that is really big on these fatty acids. And I wasn't that interested until they said, have you ever checked your balance between omega-6 and omega-3? And I go, no. And then I got irritated. I didn't tell them. I was so mad on the inside. for two reasons. One was that I didn't know the answer. And the second one, why didn't I come up with that? I mean, I've been selling this for however long. Why didn't anybody tell me, anybody come up with that idea? We could have been so rich, was my thinking about it, and I got really interested. And then I took a test, and my first test result now, eating fish 1 to 2 times a day, eating 6 capsules of omega-3 every day. That was my diet. And I thought that I would be good on that test. I actually set myself, if I fail that test, then Art will fail the test, and nearly everyone else will fail the test. That's what I set myself. And it came back 10.4 to 1. That opened my eye to something amazing. And that was that it's impossible to know without testing. And you should never take any kind of drugs, you should never take anything like that without testing first. And we all agree on that. No one in your right mind would be doing that, correct? Well, no, they do it based on testing, but there is some drugs that that's a different story. We agree on the general, not the specific. And that was what changed everything for me, because that was the day I realized that maybe this oil could help me. Before that, I wasn't sure if I was going to get any results from the oil. Then 4 months later, I passed the test 1.7 to 1. And the best part was that I had no more issues. I was eating regular food again, and I was fine, because all that was my problem was something in my intestinal that didn't work properly. And then when I got into balance, something self-corrected, and now it worked properly and is working properly till the day today. And that's why we lead with the test, because the test is what convinces everyone that they need to make the change. It's like when you get blood work, my food isn't doing what it should be doing, and you get blood work on my omega-3s aren't doing what they should be doing, and my nutritionals aren't doing, and my greens aren't doing, and my diet shake isn't doing, and all the different things that I do isn't doing everything that it should be doing. Then you say, okay, I'll take this oil for 4 months, and if you then turn green after 4 months, and you realize that, okay, so this is helping me specifically from this, and probably everything else I take is going to be absorb better when I'm actually in balance. And this is our message, and this is what everyone needs to know, is get tested, fail the test, take the product, pass the test, keep taking the product. If you don't pass the test, then we could look at enzymes. It's one of the things we look at if they don't pass the second test. But if they pass the second test, we don't need to look at enzymes, because then we know they're working just fine. And that's why when we then have a problem, we put them on a health protocol, then test again at 4 months. Usually they then pass. If they still don't pass, then we could be even more specific into saying, okay, which enzymes could be the ones that they're lacking in this case. And then there is multiple approaches to restore that. But our goal is that our health protocol one day will be so good that we never would have to look at anything else. And that's why we keep on researching and developing. And this is the story about test-based nutrition. No, we don't have to argue with anybody. We don't have to disagree with anybody. Say if they agree that it's good to get healthy nutrition, then they agree that if they fail the test, they aren't getting the right amounts of the healthy nutritions, and then they will be agreeing taking the product and testing again.
So I'm brand new here. I've just been here.
Hi there, nice to meet you.
Yeah, learning for about the last 5 minutes, and have so many questions. But because you're talking about the tests, I'd love to learn about the other tests. So I know you do the balance oil and the test that comes with that, but I also saw you have other tests, and I'd love to hear more about those and how they fit into the big picture of both body health and business.
Yeah, and we have 4 tests today, and they're pretty easy, pretty specific. 2 of them are unique. That's the balance test and the gut health test. Those are unique tests that only we perform. The two other ones, which is blood sugar. I just wanted to make it simple. Blood sugar test, which is the HB1AC test, and the vitamin D3 test. Those can be performed by anybody. We just offer it as a service for simplicity. And you would not like to fail any of these tests. If you look from a medical perspective, it's actually the vitamin D3 test and HB1AC test that you really don't want to fail the last one. That one is a crisis to fail, because that means that you've moved to pre-diabetes and then you move on later on to diabetes. So you never want to fail that test. So we offer that as a service so that you take that once a year, so that if your numbers are moving up, you then start correcting that with dietary intervention and nutritional interventions. And if it's too high, you do medical interventions until the dietary intervention works. So that's like a public service is the way I look at that. And it's really exciting because we have caught thousands of people so far that did not know that they were elevated in their blood sugars. And they got to know from us first, and they could correct their health immediately. And they saved themselves years of struggle and probably near to death experiences. Because if you have uncontrolled high blood sugar and you don't know that that's why you're tired, that's why you're in pain, that's why you're not functioning like you used to be, then that's a very important answer to get. So it's public service to offer that test, and I say that you just want to take it every year, making sure, because you don't know if you don't test. You can guess, but often we guess wrongly. Like my wife, she guessed that she would have a better balanced test than me because I had all my problems and she didn't have any problems. And she came in 15 to 1. So the guessing was completely wrong. Then the D vitamin test, again, it's such a critical nutrient for our body. We offer that test because I don't think, Colin, do you know anybody in the medical community that doesn't agree on vitamin D3 should be above a certain level today?
Not anymore.
No, they used to. They used to disagree, but not like today. Everyone knows that you should be above, I think it's 30 nanograms. That is the recommendation in the US. I say, but a little bit higher. I like 125 nanomoles, which is probably 60 nanograms. Yeah, that's like my ideal score for that. If you're higher, I'm comfortable with that, as long as you don't go over 120. If you're lower, that's your choice. So that's just a very important test as well. And then the gut health test, which did you cover some of that, Colin, here?
No, that's really more.
No, it's like, that's the future. It's like so exciting. Because we will be able to give answers that no one else have given before. And we're already discovering answers that no one could give us before we were doing this. And it's like two significant findings that we've found that we had an idea about, but we weren't sure about, and that was that if you sleep less, you're going to have reduced gut health.
Orion, we had Benita, one of our partners, and she actually was extremely high on her vitamin D. I mean,
okay, yeah,
very high.
Yeah, and
so that was very.
Bring it down.
Yeah, we were real excited to hear.
Hi, it's me.
Hey, good.
I also tested better on my omegas. I'm not trying to brag, but I am a little bit.
She did.
Yeah. and again, vitamin D is dangerous at mega dosages.
186 was my number.
186 nanograms. Or nanomoles.
186 nmol.
Nanomoles? Yeah, so that's fine. You're not like, we have what's approved science today, and then we have what researchers are working with. So in what researchers are working with, I'd say take a little bit less, but I wouldn't be worried with that score. If it was nanograms, I would be worried.
Wait, I know we're going,
yeah.
I know there's a lot of brand new people, we didn't know that, and so
Yeah.
I want to make sure they know that after this, we can make sure they get plugged into, there's calls, there's like a plethora of things that they can, we'll make sure y'all have all the resources to get.
For sure. But just let me get back to the gut health test. So sleeping less is going to give you a VERSE score, everything else the same. Excess weight is giving you a VERSE score, everything else equal. So we've already seen that in the data that we've done so far. Now, that means that if you know that you're sleeping less and you know that you have excess weight, that's even a better reason to make sure that you supplement with the synbiotic fiber, because we also clearly see that if you do 2 scoops a day or more, you get a significant improvement in your score regardless of which category you belong to. So this is just like one intervention. It doesn't take you to 100%, right? It's all green, but it significantly increases your results. And then we are on a mission to figure out how do we get everyone to 100% like we do with the balance test. We succeed with 96, 97, 98%. And we could succeed with 100% as long as they're willing to work with us long enough. But of course, we don't get to do that with everyone. But on the gut health, we will be working on then developing new products in the category or improving the products that we have in the category so that we are the best gut health company in the world.
I think it's important to note that we hear gut health a lot in the States, and so a lot of people want to default to the gut health test first. And I think it's important for them to understand why the balance test and bringing that fluidity and balance before they test, because a lot of people just want to go right to the gut health test.
Yeah, so two reasons for it. One is on the gut health area, we still don't have all the solutions. We found the test that gives you the best biomarker on saying is gut health working for you or not. But we haven't had the time to develop products that will get you to 100%. We improve you, and both the oil and the synbiotic and the extend and other of the products will improve your gut health. But we don't get you all the way there all the time. Do we have people that have perfect gut health in our test material? Yes, we do. So they exist, but we don't see that everyone gets all the way. On the balance oil, we get everyone all the way there. And now you could technically have a good gut health and a poor balance. And you want to correct both of those two. Because the gut health is some functions of your body. The balance of the cell is different functions of your body. So that if you could talk about the inflammatory response system, that's regulated by the cells, not your gut. If you talk about your immune system, that's regulated by your gut, not so much your cell. So it's different systems and we need to be good in both of them.
How do they test the gut health? Like one is a blood test, is the other one a stool or?
No, that's the unique thing. We spent 8 years on this. And then finally, we got
Is it blood?
yeah,
Is
we're
blood just like the other one?
Oh, absolutely, 100%. Because here is like, let me just give you the simple analogy. If you are gonna measure the quality of a car, would you go and test the river for the pollution of the production? And that's why when we started with this area, me together with a couple of the people on the team back then said, well, if we're gonna go into gut health, I don't wanna go and look at the pollution. I want to go and look at what it gives you as a tool for your body. And the tool for your body is not in the stool, it's in the blood. And we are the first gut health test that measures the diversity of your gut in the blood.
So speaking of that, and speaking of blood sugar, there's a lot of people that are leptin resistance because we're a first responder family. When you don't sleep, it affects your gut, but it really does a lot to that hormone. What what testing would you say if someone's asking a question on where do I stand on that?
So, Colin, it's your area more than mine.
I mean, the thing is, with something like that, you have to test it directly, but in itself, it's a indirect outcome of other things that have failed to be in place. And you know that the leptin-ghrelin relationship is whereby you bring about compromise to overall appetite management. And so there's a dissociation. And so what happens is leptin is no longer saying to ghrelin, there's a sufficient amount to stop, so ghrelin persists. So what if you look at it, it's like, rather than measure, okay, let's measure that relationship, when you look at the gut health test we've got, it's giving you a primary indicator as to how much of a contribution fibre is making to the diet and whether it's immune supportive or immune stressing. Now, it's the presence of fibre that will reintegrate the relationship between leptin and ghrelin. So we're measuring over here, saying, is there a sufficient amount of fibre in order to nurture the gut and initiate that pathway? An outcome of that will be the reassociation of leptin and ghrelin. So that's
and then, like in general terms, it would probably be correct to say that if you get a perfect balance, so 3 to 1 or better, and you get your IPA score above 2.5, let's say that, your issues with the leptin resistance would probably be less significant. Would that be about correct?
That's exactly what I'm saying, because it's a consequence of that. It's not the cause, it's a consequence. So if those are in the right place, then leptin and ghrelin are going to be communicating. They're going to have a more workable relationship. And then the more you advance that, the better that relationship is going to be. If you measured just the leptin, then it would just say, yeah, that's not working. But actually the fix is still over here, you see.
And then
So-
the omega-3s will help with you absorbing the sun, using the sun.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, and one of the things is the response from the body. So have anybody of you been to a kindergarten? Have you ever been to a kindergarten? Know what a kindergarten is? You've been to a kindergarten, yeah? So if you go to a kindergarten, usually they're pretty well behaved. But if you go to a kindergarten and you give them sugar from the morning off, how long time can you keep down the fort?
Not very long. You're gonna need jumping jacks or something.
Yeah, so that means that kids, they respond pretty quickly to things. Which means that if you know all of a sudden are going to now try to teach preschool in kindergarten after you've given them sugar all morning, how able are those kids to learn? So what it means is that it brought down your resilience in some areas. And a lot of the things that we talk about when we talk about nutritional intervention is that if you have a good nutritional score in every single area, you have a high resilience towards things you even don't fully tolerate. Go back to my story. When I had my stomach pain, if I touched gluten, I had so much pain. So that was like I cut off, like I in the end cut off anything that was bread, even if it was gluten-free, because it gave me pain. Now, when I got back into balance, I don't know if I'm still gluten sensitive or not, but I'm gluten sensitive on a level where if I eat gluten, it doesn't cause me any problems today. But then I've tried, for the purpose of science, a few times to stop taking my oil for a couple of weeks. And then after a couple of weeks, some of those sensitivities that I have become stronger. Not to the degree I was, but they become stronger. So now it's a little bit harder to eat that kind of food because resilience is less because I have nutritional deficiencies. So building health from a nutritional standpoint is about covering all the areas so that your body is really resilient, and then you handle a lot more stress. So the same kids, if you give them great nutrition, give them balanced oil all morning, and you're done trying to teach them some preschool work, they'll sit there and they'll think it's the most fun thing on earth because they're now preparing to go to school. And kindergarten kids love the idea of going to school until they start going in school.
This might have been a question for Colin, but have you seen anything with ADHD children? Because you're talking on sugar, and an ADHD child or an autistic child, they run sometimes on a higher level in general. So have you seen anything where it mellows them down?
So we have something called compliance. And if you could rephrase the question to people that have a hard time.
Hyperactive.
No, a person, let's not go to the child. A person
that is hyperactive that may or may not be diagnosed as ADHD.
No, let's do it like this. let me ask the question and I'll answer my question, okay? A person that has a reduced interest in being concentrated. So, no, it's fully compliant. When we know how the body works, we know how the cell work, we know how the brain work. We also know that if you then have reduced interest in concentration, that means that you have a nutritional deficiency throughout your entire body. And there is two things specifically. If you look at the brain, 60% is fat. Out of that 60%, nearly half of it is DHA. That's a specific omega-3 fatty acid. If you know, bring DHA in your body down to a very low level, that means that your brain is going to protect itself first, so it's going to strive to get all the DHA that you have. So now you're going to get reductions everywhere else, which is a problem because your gut also is very reliant upon DHA. So this is going to, in the end, make you less able to make neuroconnections, because that's what DHA does in the brain. Secondarily, you've got your bottom brain. Your bottom brain is doing your fight and flight and freeze response. So if I hit him in the shoulder, didn't work, he didn't hit back. Well, it got a little bit of response. That's tapping into his bottom brain. And his bottom brain is a reaction system. Now, EPA is what reduces the stress of the bottom brain. So if we take down the stress factors of the bottom brain and the inflammatory response system is normalized, you're gonna have a much better ability to concentrate after that. And your willingness to concentrate is going to go up. So now you want to concentrate up on something, because that's how our brain is built to work in the beginning, is that the more you do something, the more interested it becomes, and it searches for patterns. And when you find the patterns, you get really excited about patterns, and you want to dig deeper into that. When the brain isn't doing that, we know that it's lacking critical nutrients. Like if you look at Synceno, we're a very tiny company in the US, as we talked about, is 70,000 tests in North America,
Canada, yeah,
US, and Mexico in addition? Or?
Yeah, throw in Mexico.
Yeah, so and it's nearly 500 million people. So it's 500 million people. If you look at the EU plus those that belong in the near area of the EU, we're about 450 million people. And if you look at what we've done in Europe, we've done about 1.6 million tests in the equivalent market. The only difference between Europe and the US and North America in this case is that the popularity of nutrition is much lower in Europe. The spending budget for nutrition is way lower in Europe. The overall economy in Europe, according to your president, sucks. And then when all of my European fellow politicians are going to argue back, they can't because they know that he's actually right in that area. So that's my laugh, of course. Norwegian economy is actually pretty good, so we're okay. But that means that something very uncommon has happened. Because usually in these areas, America leads. Normally, this would be a big wave in America and then it would come to Europe 10 years later. But since omega-3 is very much centered around Northern Europe, that means that we picked this up before, even though there was a lab in the US that was doing this when we started, so it does exist prior to us as well. And we started building it over there. And we've proven the success now in, there is 3 countries in Europe that is nearly at 1% tested. And then we have 8 countries in Europe where over 1% has gotten tested. And then we have 2 countries in Europe where more than 2% has gotten tested. If we now apply these numbers over to the US, the normal would be that when this becomes known in the market, we will go from the bottom. So you're way behind. You're behind countries like Romania, Albania. No, you're in front of Albania actually, but you're behind Romania. You're behind, like, way behind Czech, which is his original country. You're way behind the UK, like far behind. So you're behind on a lot of things, and the natural thing would be that US and North America would catch up and move up to the top, to the level of Norway, Iceland, 2% or more tested. And we think that that gap is going to close in a very short period of time. We're looking at 5 years maybe, to where America as a total is way in front of Europe. And I think that in the next 3 years, we're going to close the gap on the 1.6 million tests. So that means that we're going to have a massive surge of this business in North America beyond anything that we've seen in direct selling before. Because if you just got to 2% of the American population, that's 6.6 million. If you did the entire market, that's then 10 million tests. That's a $2 to $3 billion a year business. And that's 2%. No, you still go out and 98 out of 100 have no idea what you're talking about. So the market isn't saturated at 2%, but still we will be a $2 to $3 billion business. And that's very exciting from an opportunity perspective. Are you guys catching how exciting that is? Because that means that you're with Zinzino at such an early stage. It's like if you go back in time to give some examples, it's like when the fire truck got a car phone stage. That's how early we are. And the police car also had a car phone. And then some few business people bought a car to carry with them their phone. That stage is when we are at, you know, at the very beginning of something that will change everything. You know, why will it change everything? Because I do not believe that in a society driven by AI, it's an information age beyond anything else, and where you will in the future have AI integrated to everything. So when you go and shop, when you go and talk, and like when you have the family discussions, the AI will be listening in and talking to you in the ear, giving you the good arguments and all of the things that will happen. The AI isn't going to tell you, hey, I think you should pick up that supplement that you find over at the health food store or Costco's or wherever you find it, that has no validation, no testing, and we have no idea if you need. The AI just doesn't have it in it to do that because it is intelligent. Humans are intelligent, but we buy with emotions. We don't use our intelligence when we make decisions. We use emotions when we make decisions. Sometimes we use our intelligence to make decisions. That's when you start your savings in a mutual fund. That's when you use your intelligence, okay? But then when we buy a car instead for that money, that's when we use our emotions. So whatever is saving us things is our intelligence, but when we shop, it's emotions. But AI is not emotional, it's intelligent all the time. So it's going to direct you to say, hey, before you buy that omega-3, go and get a test. Here is your options. And then one of those options is going to be Cincino, since we're the world leader of the area. And then a lot of people would want to do that in the future. And then when you get your test back, we're going to talk about your omegas. And then you can snap me a picture of each one of them, and then I'll research the 8 billion people and see which ones they've taken, and then we'll measure that up towards their testing results, and then it's going to lead back to mostly one company for now. And that is going to go super fast. Yes?
Two questions, if I could. Are you able to ramp up production to keep up with that market?
With the oil or the test?
Well, any of it.
Test is easy, that we can ramp up. It's just buying more equipment. We can analyze about 25,000 tests per month in a room less than the size of this one. So actually, we only need this side of the room to do 25,000 tests a month. So that's very highly effective. So we can ramp that up. I mean, there is big enough buildings, we just buy more machines. And we actually, it's kind of fun because we used to have 5 people working full-time in the lab on doing 500 tests a month. And today we have about 5 people. We have more people at the lab now, but they're not really working with the test, they're working with the support and research and systems around the test that are doing about 35,000 tests a month, because everything is automated. And then the second question...
Second question was, you talked earlier about how in years gone by you worked for like a 3-year period getting no sales, and then something changed and you suddenly were able to build...
Well, this was back in my 20s, so that's a long time ago.
But can you give us what's the key that we need to know so that we can maybe overcome a little of that learning curve?
Yeah, I'll give you some keys on that. First, I'm going to answer the omega question. Is there enough omega-3 in the world to balance 8 billion people? From a fish sourcing, absolutely not. We're at peak oil. In fact, 2023, the oil production dropped with 35%. And in 2024, actually it dropped in 2022, then dropped in 2023, then dropped in 2024, and then it came back up, luckily, in 2025. So now we have enough for about 65-70 million people to be in balance from a fish sourcing of omega-3s. And this is why we have been investing into algae sourcing of EPA and DHA, and we have bought into a company that owns a lot of patents in this area. We also have patented process for the spirulina that you see over there and the phycocyanide, and we're building a new system for how to make it so that over the next 25 years we can scale that to a level where we produce more omega-3s from algae than what we do from the oceans. And that could be scaled to 8 billion people. So that's the future of food, and Cincino is a big part of that, and we think that our systems for that is on both price and quality better than any existing system today, and we've got a couple of patents that protects that at least to begin with.
And that would be processed with the same polyphenol type
Of course, yeah. We also own an olive oil factory with patented processing system that takes about, let's say, 5 to 10 times more nutrients out of the same olive going through the same or going through our patented system versus the regular system. So we're investing a lot in the industry behind this because we truly believe that every person on earth would want to be in balance in the future. So we also want to be able to supply it and own the industry that makes it for eventually our customers first, but if there is a surplus, anybody else that would want it. I have a question here, then I'll come back to your building question afterwards.
Just a quick question about the testing. On the instructions on the back of the box tells you to be fasting for, I think it was 10 to 12 hours?
That's on the gut health
That was
test.
just the gut health, it wasn't the omega.
Yeah, so if you eat at 8 o'clock in the evening and you take the test in the morning, that's the easiest way.
That's only the gut, okay, good, it's okay.
And your second gut health test, do the same. That's the main reason why. So we're recreating the same environment of your gut.
Okay, so the omega balance, because I was concerned, like, if I'm wanting to take the test to somebody and help them to do it.
So because of the way we do the test is not so influenced by your food. But if you eat a lot of omega-3s right now and we test you, none of that will show up in the test, so that doesn't matter. But if you took a mega dosage of omega-3 about 6 hours ago, it's going to start entering into your bloodstream at a concentrated level in your plasma. Now, the plasma is just a part of the test because we also have the red blood cells in it. So it is going to influence it a little bit, but not significantly because it's a pretty robust way of doing it. But we do recommend people that just had like a mega dosage of omega-3 just to wait 12 hours before they do the test. Because then that plasma level is then transported out into the cell membrane where it doesn't affect the test at all.
I might sound like an idiot back here on this because I cannot remember if I'm pronouncing this right. How did we get the blood sample to y'all without it hemolyzing? Like if I go and get a vial of blood and then they sometimes would have to come back and redraw the blood because by the time it got to the lab, it's no longer any good. How are we getting our blood to you without it doing that?
So there is an antioxidant in the paper, and when it dries into the paper, it's good without freezing it for more than 6 weeks. And it's sealed inside of an envelope that sucks up the rest of the water from your blood or moisture from your blood, so that it's good for at least 6 weeks in the mail. This is the technology they use to freeze down blood for a long time without having to have massive storage spaces. So if you freeze it down, the sample is good for 10 years. So then you can open it up at any time and you can use the dried blood to do the analysis that you need to.
I have a question. Whenever you're traveling, you're not bringing the oil itself, you're using the capsules? And what's the difference in the efficacy of those?
The capsules are just as effective, just take the right dosage, so that's no problem. I usually pour my oil into 100 milliliter bottling and bring it with me.
Okay.
Yeah,
thank you.
So I like the oil better. It's just easier to swallow the oil than the capsules for me. He likes the capsules better.
Only when I travel. I've gotten used to the oil. I love the oil. Oh, yeah. I love the oil. With water in a shot glass.
And even Art can improve. That's incredible. We've been friends for forever, so we tease each other a little bit.
How long
can you put water in it? Why are you having to put water? It tastes good to me.
Yeah. So some people, it'll taste amazing. You're going to love it. Some people drink it straight out of the bottle, like insane people to my left. Some of us maybe were given cod liver oil from our mom along the way. So we've like this reaction that's not logical. Our oil tastes amazing. This orange, lemon, mint, grapefruit. It's the best tasting oil. But when you put water in a shot glass and then you pour the oil on top, the oil rises. When you take that shot, the last thing that hits your palate is the water. So it tastes like orange, lemon, mint water. And that makes it really easy. And then after a couple of weeks of that, you can take it straight because you've acclimated to it. But with the water or orange juice, it's just super easy. Yeah.
Fruity is the best.
Yeah, love it.
So people have different yes and then yes.
I just want one follow-up question. How long can you keep it unrefrigerated after it's opened?
the bottle of oil until it tastes bad.
Okay, good. Yay, thank you.
Because that's the real test. So you've got something called Totox levels. And this is actually the real reason why most omega-3s doesn't work. Because when you go to the store and you buy the capsules, if you then take out a knife and you cut it in two, if it tastes great, then it will be absorbed at a certain level in your gut. If it smells bad, you shouldn't taste it because it's already a biohazard.
Okay.
And you would find that most of the capsules that you cut in two is a biohazard. Should not be eaten by a human.
And if you're crazy, you don't cut it in half first, which I used to do, and just bite it, and it tastes like glue. Spit it out.
Yeah, if it tastes like glue, then it's gone to where it is actually so oxidative that it might be harmful.
And I've tasted a lot that tastes like glue.
That's so good to
Which
know.
is scary.
Yeah, you'd find that half of what's in the supermarket would taste like glue. And outside of the refrigerator, I would say about, on a big bottle, 300 milliliter, usually about a week it can last
Okay.
without starting to taste like more fishy.
Okay.
So when you keep it in the fridge, it lasts for about 30 days without starting to taste fishy. When it's a little bit fishy taste, it's gotten to the Totox level of fish. So it's still not dangerous.
Okay.
But when it starts tasting very fishy, then you will have the same reaction to eating that as eating a fish that tastes very fishy. So you should not eat that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
About the taste, I've been on it several months, and I've never tasted anything. I'll hold it by mouth. I never taste it. I don't
Like, does
smell
it taste
anything.
fishy? No.
Pardon me? What do you think?
Yeah, it does not taste fishy.
No.
No? Of
Okay.
course not.
But in the last month, when I swallowed it, it would burn my throat something fierce. That's when I started chasing it with water, not mixing them, just chasing it with water.
It's just, you got a batch with a little bit higher polyphenol level. And it's polyphenol, maybe a little bit. It could also be if it's the orange lemon mint, it could also be the orange that's a little bit strong, but it's nothing wrong with that. But just take it with the water and you don't have the experience.
That's what I'm doing, but you were talking about the taste
Yeah,
and chasing the water.
yeah.
The only reason I found that's necessary is because
Yeah.
it burns so bad.
That's if you are starting to get a cold, you want to have the burn because then you get the polyphenols exactly where you want them. But
So it's a
that's
good thing.
Different.
If you take a very high grade olive oil, you're going to feel that burn. Right? It's just the quality of
Okay,
the oil.
so I've got one question there, and then I'm going to answer the gentleman's question, and we're going to end on that because we need to talk some business here. I mean, this is the most product-centered group that I've had for a long time. Okay.
I was real surprised to find out that the Tutti Frutti flavor has, I think it's 30% less EPA and DHA and polyphenols in it than the other three flavors. And I was curious why that's not advertised more.
No, that's not correct.
Here's the reason why we might believe that. The bottle's label reflects the recommendation for children. So children need to take a little bit more than adults. And so look for the adult dosage. The dosage for the adult is the same as the other ones, which gives you the exact same amount.
It's just a label difference, and I can guarantee that at a 100% certainty.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, that label was confusing then.
The adult dosage versus the children's dosage.
Okay.
Children need to take a little bit more based on their weight.
Yeah. Because they have a higher metabolism.
And they burn through the omegas faster, basically.
You had the last question there before I'm going to answer the
Thank you
gentleman's.
for your time. I'm loving this.
Thank you.
When we had leaky gut issues and went down that path as you did within our family, I started learning about the studies of Weston A. Price and love the work of Weston A. Price and his studies on he was a dentist who studied the blue zone
Yeah.
blue zone cultures and their diets. And there is still a Weston A. Price Foundation that highly recommends a certain kind of supplementation to
Okay.
match that. Do you ever work with them, or have you worked
No,
with them?
I have not, and I'm not familiar with them. So today, I think for the leaky gut issue, there is a lot of knowledge. When I had mine, the knowledge was very poor, was very few, and a decade before that, the knowledge was like close to zero. Now, the reason why there wasn't any knowledge about this 30, 40 years ago was that there was so few people that had it. So no, this is something, knowledge grows with a problem usually. And there is many things like from a dietary advice that I know today that I didn't know 5 years ago. There is things that I know today that I probably didn't know a week ago, and there is things that I will know a week from now, where I might told you wrong information today, because that's the progression of science. And that's why we love being science-based. But when we talk about health as a general, you talk about enzymes in the back and say, should we have an enzyme supplement? Should we have all of this? And yes, if you were going to solve every problem with a nutritional, you would need every nutritional in a box somehow. Now, we believe a little bit more holistic than that, and saying that, no, we got to look at other things as well. So one of the things that I'm trying to reteach myself at the age of 50 is what my mother tried to teach me at the age of 5. And I probably should have had more balanced oil when I was 5, so I got the information right. And that is to chew every bite of food I take 20 times. Now, with a show of hand today, how many of you chewed every bite of food 20 times today? So that's the recommendation. So I'm working now on getting to 10. I'm like counting 1. It goes so slow through my meal, it's very frustrating. And I'm going to work myself to be higher than that. Most of us would never need to take an enzyme product if we just bother to chew our food 10 times. Because after you've chewed it, first it's mixing with the saliva. Most of the enzymes that we use for digestion start in our mouth. That's why we have a mouth. Because we're supposed to chew our food. Isn't that fascinating? We're created that way. And then it goes down into our stomach. Now when you chew, it's a signal to your stomach acid, strengthen up. So if you chew your food, you're gonna have stronger stomach acid. When the stronger stomach acid hits chewed food, you're gonna digest the food very effectively, very quickly, and you're gonna have no stomach problems. And then it's gonna enter into your small intestinal in the form that your small intestinal knows how to deal with it. And then it's gonna come into your large intestinals in the form where your large intestinals know how to deal with it. And at the end of the day, if we just chewed our food, we would get rid of half of the people that are working with digestive problems. Now, the other half will still be there, and we won't get rid of anyone. But I learned this, I didn't learn this as a kid, but I learned it when I was in Poland quite a few years ago. And I was drinking water before my meal. I was getting a great meal of duck. Polish and their ducks are like absolutely amazing. I was,
I'm Polish.
Oh, okay, nice, yeah. And then the lady that owned the restaurant, she came over to me and she wanted to slap my hand. And we had fun, and I was like drinking more water, and she was like, don't do that. You're not supposed to drink before you eat your meal. And then I was during my meal drinking, and then she came over again. You're crazy. You're not supposed to drink together with your meal. And then after my meal, I was drinking water, and she said, you're not supposed to drink. She was really mad at me. And I was like, what is this? This is a Polish culture, and I completely ignored it. Then a few years later, I come across that when you drink water 30 minutes before you have a meal, you dilute your stomach acid. And when you drink during the meal, you dilute your stomach acid. And then you drink after your meal, you dilute your stomach acid. So no, if you have meat that is supposed to be fully digested within 2 hours, within 2 hours it will still go into your small intestinals, but it will be half digested. So when you then get bloated and you get all of these symptoms and all of this stress, a lot of these things comes from just bad habits. And we don't need to create a nutritional product for something that you can chew and just have water an hour before the meal and an hour after the meal, which is easily solved by just becoming a little bit cultural again, like they used to do 100 years ago. They would chew and they would eventually not drink with the meals nearly everywhere around the world. So these are things that we also like to educate people on and saying that we shouldn't solve everything with a pill. A pill is the last resource. We should solve things before we need to take a pill. That's the best way of dealing with it. And now, why do we then have the supplements? Well, because the omega-3 supplements, the balanced oil, it is so hard and so expensive to eat that kind of food today. There is a reason for that, and that is because all the food we eat today is made in a factory. It used to be made by Mother Nature. When the food was made by Mother Nature, an egg had a good balance between omega-6 and omega-3. The chicken was a super food. Today, chicken is still a nutritious food, but it's not a superfood because it's a horrible unbalance between omega-6 and omega-3. When you ate salmon back in the days before the Norwegians started manipulating it, it didn't need 17 medication to survive so that it could reach your plate. And when it's on your plate, it was rich in omega-3 and super low in omega-6. Today, it's high in omega-6 and a good portion of omega-3. Then if you go over to your salad once used to be out in the sun and look up at the sun, and it had the nutrients from the earth, and those nutrients came recirculated through everything that was going on. Today, it lives in a greenhouse, and in a factory we make 3 ingredients that we feed to it so that it can grow really fast, look really green, but when you eat it, it's not filled with the nutrients that we used to have. And this is why we need the omega-6 or the omega-3 with the polyphenols to be able to enrich our diet back to original food. Synbiotics, same thing, because of our dietary change and our eating habits change. When you eat fish, anybody had fish today? Okay, great. So did you enjoy the skin of the fish?
It was sardines, so...
Okay, so you ate the skin and the brain and everything today. So that's fantastic, because no, she got every nutrient that she needed out of that fish. So she got fibers, everything. So if she would eat a box of sardines every day, then you probably don't need neither the balanced oil nor the synbiotic. But for the rest of us that doesn't eat that way, we need that to supplement in what's missing in the food and extend this all the phytonutrients and so on. So that's our philosophy. We take the big areas that needs to be fixed by modern food, which is supplement for me. So I call it food. I don't look at it as nutritional supplement. It's just food because it's what our body needs to be able to thrive. Now, if we do this together, we're going to get great results with everyone. And if you have other problems, then ask questions, find out, and go back to looking at what they used to do in the past. Because in the past, they didn't have all the modern drugs, and then they had to do wise things, wise choices, and they listened a little bit more to it because we couldn't go and fix it as easily as we can today. And that's a part of what we then support as well. So I do like everything, but I also do like to look at the alternative to save you money so that you only spend money on what's critical and essential in being able to get your house right.
So the prospecting part to me is, show the need for the product, which we covered in the beginning of the presentation, and then ask, would you like to help us help others? So if you feel like you're a little bit nervous about turning the conversation towards, hey, can I sign them up as a partner who can also go get customers? Just ask that question and see the response, right? And then from there, you can have a conversation around what type of income can be generated. And there are a number of different types of income. And one of them for me is like my mother had, raising me as a child. She would go to work in Greece, and at the end of the month, she made just enough money to cover the groceries, the rent for the apartment, and maybe a little Lego for me, and the cod liver oil, right? And then the beginning of the month, she had to start from zero again, financially. And then she would have to repeat that pattern, and then March 1, she would start from zero financially, and April 1, she would start from zero financially. And that becomes rather frustrating. And an alternative to that is to say, what if we didn't have to start from zero financially based on something that we've done in the past? So with Zinzino, here's what happens. If you decide to help us help others, and you start creating some customers, then as long as those customers order, we'll pay you over and over and over again. So you do the work right one time, create a loyal customer, and then you can get paid again and again and again for a long time. So if you create several customers, you can start with not zero every month. If you get a lot of customers, you get paid a lot more. If you find other people who want to create customers, you get paid even more in the beginning of every month. And so the question becomes, hey, if you'd like to help us help others, it's a really neat way to not have to start from zero every single month. You can break that zero pattern, and in the meantime, all the people using the products are going to be pretty excited because they're getting an incredible value. They're testing, not guessing. They're not hoping and wishing that their product works. They know for a fact that it works, and it's making an impact on their lives. And that simple conversation can be a turn, and then watch their response. Yeah, I'd be interested in doing that, or nah, I like starting from zero every month. Okay.
I've got two insights that I didn't have, that when I learned it, it changed my life. And the first one is find a need, fill the need. And the second one is the value proposition. If you give more value than what you ask for in return, people will mostly say yes. So how do we find the need? We ask questions. When it comes to how to sell the product, you ask health-related questions. When it comes to the business, you ask health-related questions to close them in, that they want to try the product, and then you ask financial-related questions until you find the problem. When you find the problem, you can offer the solution, and you can tie the solution to your presentation. So when you get really good at this, everyone is open as a book. They talk to you, and whenever they talk to you, you say, tell me more. That's interesting. How is that affecting your life? And then at the end you say, would you like to continue to live with a problem, or would you be open to hear about a solution? Most people say, I would love to hear a solution, and know they're open to listening to your message. It ties into my rules of communication, and that is that everything that I say, you might disagree with, but everything that you say is the truth. So when they're now open for a solution, I tell them about the solution, and then I ask them questions until they admit that they want the solution, and then I ask them to buy. So that's the process that we go through. And then the second part of it is building value. So there is so many areas we can build value in that is in addition to the products. But the first area is to build the value in the products. So when you take a product like ours, you get a before test, you know that you need it. Then you get an after test, so we prove to you that you actually got a result, or it improved your blood levels. So that's one of the big benefits that we have. So when people understand that, they're willing to pay more for the product because they actually know that they're going to get a result. Then the second part is that if we tell them what a test actually costs, like $183 or Is that dollar price now?
It'll be 187.
$187. The oil cost now.
It's 45, 47.
Yeah, no, but what will be the
47.
Retail price of the oil?
It's going to be 65.
So 65 still. So it's 65, and you talk through that to begin with them. You need 2 tests, and you need to take it 6 months, and that's a package price, and that has a certain cost. Then you say, but if you are willing to commit to your health for 6 months, I'm going to give you a discount on the test down to 115 for the end of February, going to 127 from 1st of March. So we got to urgently act on the 115. And then I'll include 1 free balance oil into that. So that's an additional $45 saving. Then you pay $45, $45, $45, $45. Is it the next month or?
5th month.
Yeah, 5th month at $45. And then they give you $183 test included for free into that $45. Would you like to try this program? Now all of a sudden this becomes an offering that becomes very attractive. So when the customer, because they're emotional, you remember that? So your intelligent customers, even the doctor, is buying with their emotions. If we didn't use our emotions, we would all be skinny, rich, and happy. Because then everything would be intelligent and you wouldn't do anything that was harmful to yourself if every decision that you took was intelligent. But when it's emotional, we might do crazy stuff, you know? I mean, when I get into the restaurant out there, I've got a lot of knowledge, and then they come over to me and I'm going to make an emotional decision that I might on a Saturday night when I'm sobbing because it's Valentine's Day and Hilde isn't here, have a glass of red wine. That's an emotional decision. That's not an intelligent decision. No, some of you have read that a glass of red wine is healthy for you. Well, we have a problem defending that in modern science, but the good part, it is actually might be healthy for your kidneys, just not your liver. And everything else. But your kidneys, we can argue. So next time they say that, it's not healthy for you. Well, it actually is healthy for my kidneys at least. And maybe my mood, at least for the 2 first glasses. But that's an emotional decision. So people are emotional when they decide. So when we then have them look at an offering that is attractive, they're more likely to say yes. Moving over to the business to build the value, you can then use the compensation plan, and we haven't covered all of that now, and they will cover that on Zoom meetings after Zoom meetings. But when we come to the refund offers, when you get into the business, and all of you have heard the presentation most likely, you get the refund if you get to the ultimate kit, and you can upgrade later on, the story around all of that. And then they buy that kit or they upgrade to that kit. And then you say, one of the things that I'm going to give you as a promise is that I will work on every single person that you put in front of me to get them as a customer until you have 25 customer points and you're A team at month 13 so that you can get the full refund. And at that point, you've made a couple of $1,000 and you've also created an income that is recurring month over month by $115 plus the team commission plus a shopping spree every single month. Would you like to try that? They're more likely to say yes after you said that instead of you saying, hey, it's $1,200, would you like to join? Because I built in more value. If I build additional value, I say, and when we've done that, if you sponsor anybody into your team, I'm going to work with you and whoever you put in front of me on your A side, on your B side, until you become a crown or higher. A crown typically makes up to $15,000 a month. So that's my personal commitment into your business to help you grow. Would you like to try to do this business together with me? They're going to be more likely to say yes because you built in more value. Now, we could talk then also build value about the system that we provide, about the trend that we're in the first and the beginning. So there is multiple ways of building value. So you make your list of what you like to build value, and then build that into the presentation. And if you find a need, you match it to the presentation, and you build a lot of value, people will say, thank you for inviting me into this. I'm grateful. When do we get started? That's when you know that you found the need, you filled the need, and you created enough value. If I knew that when I was 17, I would have signed up people right away from day one, and I would have been super successful many years before. I learned this about when I was 21. That's when I figured out that I wasn't looking for two people that worked for me. I was looking for two people that I could work for. And that changed everything for me. Yes, in the back.
So you stated that you started when you were 13, and then if you knew when you were 17.
Not 13. I started network marketing when I was 17, nutrition when I was 13, 14. Yeah.
In the state of Texas, women can be emancipated at the age of 17, and boys can be tried as adults at the age of 17. Can they sell our products at the age of 17?
No, I had to sign up in my uncle's name in England to join at 17 in Norway. Sorry about that. But I did that, and then I turned 18, and then I was allowed to sign up.
Got it.
Technically, in different countries, there is different laws. So if you live in Norway, you can open up a company, and you're allowed to act as a company before you're 18, but that means that you have a co-signer on your company. So it's not really you doing the business, it's the co-signer doing the business.
Now, if we were...
US, I have no idea about the laws, ask Art.
Now, if we were going to open like a storefront, would we be able to hire one of those miners to work in there?
I would recommend neither. Yeah. Yeah. So don't open the storefront and don't get minors involved if you do. Yeah. And it's not this. There is a legal aspect to it, of course, but there is also a business aspect to it. You will be so much more effective working the model that we have than opening the storefront. Mm-hmm. Yes.
So I'm new to Zinzino as a partner, and I have recommended things to my friends before, and they were like, quickly to whatever you say we will do because we trust you. Mm-hmm. And with this product, when I talked about it, and I believe in it because I believe in testing and seeing the results, but as soon as I mentioned the business opportunity, they all like disappeared. They were all pushing back. And so I'm having a really hard time with it because when you're supposed to invite your friends to the meeting and don't really tell them much about the business, and they come in and then they'll learn about the balance oil, but then they start hearing about the business side and they're like, no, not really for me, but I want them on the oil. Like, I wonder how to get better. So how would you navigate that?
So I don't know the full process of how your team works. Yeah. I'm really sad that it's been happening for you. I don't enjoy that at any time.
I'm just trying to learn.
Yeah, so two things that I would do. One is that I would probably run down the customer route and just get them signed up as a customer first.
That's how I feel, because this is how you get the trust.
Yeah.
And not like I'm pushing the product on somebody. Even though I tested it and I'm a big supporter of it, I don't want it to sound like I'm selling, because I generally want people to have a healthier life.
Yeah, and then secondarily, I would then make a system for I follow up with those that I want to do business with, and then present them the business. Now, everyone mostly loves shopping. A lot of people don't like selling. But on your contact list, there is also going to be some people that you don't think you should contact them necessarily for the shopping part. You would only contact them for the business part. And they would fit much better into the direct approach of inviting them to the meeting without knowing so much. And that's why in Express Start, the black book that you got with your circuit, we talk about, no, that's the notebook. Yeah, but it's there somewhere. We talk about splitting your list into this are your natural customers and this is your natural business approach people. Yeah. And then if you do the business approach directly, one of the things that is very important is to make a clear choice in that pipeline, saying that, hey, we're now going to start talking about the business, so if you're not interested in that, then check out now with a customer opportunity before we go through the next part. That's a way to solve it if you want to do like one pipeline for everything. Yeah.
Since we just opened up in Peru, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Is there somewhere where we need to go and check out how exactly we're allowed to transact business over there, as bringing in partners?
No, you can bring in partners and customers with the products that we have on our website on the exact same system as we have in the US. The only thing is that there might be some local registration things where there is a different number that needs to be put on the website for them to be able to sign up. But the Peruvian would mostly know that, and if they don't, you get a hold of Renzo, which lives in Orlando, that is Peruvian, that works with the Latin American markets, and he would help you and coach you through that. Or your uplines would find out. There was a question there, and then there, and then there.
How long has Zinzino been selling the balance oil?
Since 2012. I took my test the 13th of March 2012. Yes, yes.
So I send the product to my brother. He's in Poland. I sent it to him and his wife. He had a heart attack and first stents at 43 last year.
Ooh.
So I want him on this because I want his health to improve.
Yeah.
But if I want, and it works differently when you do subscription in Poland. That's something also I'm learning. You have to commit for 6 months, and they send it to you every 2 months. So it's a little different, but I loved how quickly it arrived, because in Poland it takes a while to get anything.
We have a warehouse in Poland, in Warsaw, so it's like it was, next door. Yeah.
It was there at my brother's door, and he was so excited. So if I want to grow it in Poland,
exciting.
Is there anyone there that I can connect with, or do I just bring them on as partners?
Bring them on as partners in Poland, and then we'll connect them into the teams in Poland, or it can help you set it up. Whoever is the upline can help you set it up, and we have sales directors there, plus local teams that can follow some of what they do, in addition to what you will do, because you do that work with your personals, but then they can be plugged into a little bit of the system that we have.
Now, being that I'm in the merge, I had a question. Is our website going to change?
Yes, you're gonna move over to the Zinzino website.
And will the name will completely change of where we direct our customers?
Yes, it will go to Zinzino.com, and then it will be a link to Brand Shop, and HWorks will be in the Brand Shop, and there everything is the same as today with HWorks name and HWorks.
So I'm assuming y'all are going to send us an email with that.
Correct.
At the beginning of March?
Yes.
To close on that, I feel like we're a small group. We've got a big job to go out there and spread this to people that need it and grow the business. So I guess word of mouth and meet needs. And are you as a company going to do like a larger advertising type of campaign, or?
So that's not our real strategy to do that. That's why we do the model the way we do it, and your uplines could explain you more about that, and they'd be happy to do that. What I was going to say, just as a closing, which is the uniqueness of our model. Because every time we take somebody's finger and we drop blood, that is something that they will remember for a while. At least for a day or two, maybe for a year or two. Most of them remember it for a very long time. So that's a very strong brand building piece. So if everyone that joins the business is very good at testing people all the time, so you have your test out working for you all the time, we're going to build a very strong brand. Then some people are on social media, some are not. So there is different marketing going on all the time when it comes to the direct selling or network marketing Cincino model. So that's going on all the time. And what we want to do is to build a from the ground revolution. So that the first approach that people get is actually you telling them about it, then they test, and then they tell a few people. When you meet somebody that have heard about the test before, they're much more open. So that's exciting for them, and then you test them. And then eventually when you get to about 2.5% of the population tested, then you've gone through what we call the innovation phase. And at that point, you start with a little bit more rapid growth. If we get to that phase in the US, we're already then doing like 1.5–2 billion in sales, which is good. That's when marketing money actually gives you some legs. Before that, marketing is nearly waste of money no matter what you do, and you need to have enormous budgets for it. So until then, I'm saying mostly no. We'll do what we call organic things. When we launched the gut health test, we did an organic marketing campaign. So that had like 1 million views or whatever it was, mostly in the scientific community. When we did our big big study that was published on the 9th of August last year, we did a marketing around that became the most downloaded science paper of the year. 2025. So we do some of it, but we don't have the money to do nationwide global marketing to where it makes a difference before it becomes a little bit more popular. And then of course, when it's a little bit more popular, we're doing maybe global sales of 4 or 5 billion. So we also have a little bit more money to spend on that. So there is two things happening at the same time.